Right now, he is making love to a beautiful woman. She has long, fiery red hair, dark skin, and she is a queen. This world is perfect. The guy fell out of bed, because of which he woke up lying on the floor. He realized that it was a dream, and then remembered that he could be late. But he calmed down, because he took a 2-week leave. Sometime later, he is riding a bicycle on the streets. His name is Yamai Zenjiro, and he is an ordinary employee. He notes that he hasn't had a day off for a long time, so he ponders how he should spend it, whether he should watch a DVD or go on a trip. If he were a more determined person, he would not worry about where he was going, but in a moment he disappears along with the bicycle and finds himself in some room. Where a woman greets him, Zenjiro doesn't understand what's going on, but he knows he needs to stay calm and try to make the right decision. He touches his lunch and realizes that this is not a dream, because he is warmer, and the unknown girl comes closer to him, and he remembers that this girl was in his dream. Zenjiro doesn't understand what he's doing here, so it's time for an apology. He bows deeply and regrets his intrusion. Raising his head, he realizes that all the guards have pointed their spears at him, but he doesn't fully understand if they are real, but the girl stops them and orders them to lower their weapons. They immediately carry out her order, because she is the queen, and the girl herself asks the main character for forgiveness, and she understands his bewilderment. She should also apologize for bringing him without asking. Zenjiro says that everything is fine, the girl is happy, and knows that the guy is interested in how he got here. Therefore, she wants to continue their dialogue in another place. She leads him through this huge castle, and the main character looks around. And he can't figure out if everything is really real, and no matter what he thinks about it, this place is far from his apartment and doesn't even look like Japan. Sometime later, having arrived at a remote place and sat on sofas opposite each other, the girl says that first she needs to introduce herself, and her name is Aura Kapura, but she would like him to just call her Aura. The protagonist says that he understands everything, and then introduces himself and explains that his name is Yamai Zenjiro. Yamai is his last name, and Zenjiro is his first name. Aura says that she will then call him Mr. Zenjiro. The guy says that she can call him whatever she likes. Now she will tell him everything, and she understands that he may be outraged by what he heard. And if he does not want to stay here, she will return him to normal life. After thinking for a few seconds, Zenjiro says that everything is fine and asks to tell him what is happening. He won't win anywhere without understanding the situation and just listening to her. Aura begins to explain to him that this is the continent of Randorion, which is known as the Southern Continent, in the west of which is the kingdom of Capua. And her palace is in the middle of the imperial capital of Capua. He does not understand if she is serious, but the girl explains to him that this place is called another world. The guy understands what she means by these words, and then starts laughing because he doesn't believe her, and the girl calls someone to her and asks him to come to her. Zenjiro gets up and doesn't understand what it is, and then an incomprehensible creature appears in front of him, baring its teeth, and the guy falls to the floor in fear. Aura apologizes for this, and explains that it is an earth dragon. The guy understands that there are no such animals in their world, but he cannot fully believe it. Sitting down on the sofas again, the girl continues to tell him something, and the guy thinks, sometime later, they notice that their conversation has dragged on. But he got a lot of benefit from it, and it is clarified that he is in another world. In the kingdom of Capua, Aura is the queen, and she used magic that only the royal family can use to transport him. She is glad that he was able to accept it, and says that he can call her by her first name, but Zenjiro does not understand how she could choose him. After all, he doesn't have any skills, but she just wants him to become her fiancé. The guy doesn't fully understand. Aura explains to him that she wants him to marry her. Because of these words, the guy drops the jug on the floor, not understanding why he should do this. The girl explains to him that this is all because of the war, and the price of victory is very high. On top of that, the descendants of the royal family died, and therefore it is her duty, which is why she cannot marry just anyone. And in order for her magic to be passed on to the next generation, her companion must be of royal blood. But the guy still doesn't understand, because he's an ordinary earthling. Then Aura begins to explain to him that 5 generations ago, the prince was married to a woman with whom he could never be together, because she was a commoner. He gave up the throne, choosing love, but in that world they could not be happy and went to Earth, but the guy still does not understand. The girl tells him that he is a descendant, because the spell can only transfer people with royal blood. Now Zenjiro thought for a bit, because his skin was darker than the Japanese, and yet he can't believe it because so much time has passed. But Aura says that everything is fine and his blood ties are strong. After thinking for some time, she realized that she was not mistaken and offers to talk to him again. She tells him that if he does not want to be here, then she will send him back, but if he stays, then she can send him back once. Since the move affects the position of the stars, and after which she won't be able to send him back for 30 years, Zenjiro can't believe it. Aura understands that he did not think about their marriage seriously. The guy will have to say goodbye to the land for a long time, but it would be a good deal for him because nothing holds him in that world. And he will not regret staying here. His wife will be a beauty, he will live in luxury, and he will really like it, but suddenly the realization comes that kings have almost no free time. Then he asks if he marries her, what will be included in his duties. She says that nothing special. And if he marries her, he will become the first person, but she will try to make his wishes come true. But this is too good for the guy. And he will be able to live lazily. But what will the girl get from such a marriage, and still decides to ask a few questions at the end? Zenjiro asks if he refused this deal, what would she do to get married? Then she would marry a nobleman with strong blood ties to the royal family. The guy asks if it would be her great-grandmother's. Aura tells him that this is not true and that they would be the descendants of her great-grandfather's mother. He knew that something was wrong here. He realized that it does not matter how strong his blood ties are, and maybe his existence in this world has value, but why did she choose him as a spouse? And yet he does not want to jump to conclusions because she promised to bring him back. Then Zenjiro asks that he really won't have to do anything, and that's what she wants from her ideal husband. The girl says that's true. And she cannot ask for more, because it is she who asks him to give up his home. He has been thinking about everything for a long time, and now everything has become clear to him. And he asks if he stays, where will he live? The girl says in the inner palace. Then he asks, what if, after marriage, he locked himself in the inner palace? With no one, not meeting except her and spending days on idleness and fun, smiling Aura says that she would only be glad about this. Zenjiro understands that this is very good for him. She needs a husband who will do nothing, because this kingdom is dominated by men, and if a nobleman became her husband, he would try to gain power on par with the queen. And the country could be split. The girl says that she does not want to rush him, so she will wait for his decision until tomorrow so that she can bring him home. For a guy who has nothing but a job, this sounds like a good deal, and this is his chance to change his life. But the price is also high, although different from what he had to endure before. And, as a person, he is proud of what he himself was able to achieve, and deciding on this deal is not so easy. Aura understands that she demands too much from him, and she behaves like a tyrant, so she won't mind his refusal, and she doesn't want to seem like an unhappy woman and project her selfish desires onto him. Zenjiro watched her closely, then walked up to her and took her hands, asking them to get married already. The girl stands in shock. But the guy agrees, because such a deal can be decided at first sight, so he decides to let go of his pride. Queen Fadiodeboha's assistant congratulates Her Highness on her engagement, then asks her what her impressions of Zenjiro are. Aura says that he is much more perceptive than she expected. He was able to understand her hidden motives. Then the assistant suggested that she accept the offers of her relatives. Even though he says so, but he really proposes to marry her with a hungry wolf and a doll, she asks if they are both nothing more than a man filled with ambition and a puppy who does what the family orders. The assistant notes that the queen is demanding, but reminds him that the protagonist is from another world, so he is concerned about whether they will be able to start a family. But Aura thinks that it will depend on her sincerity and persistence, but the man tells her that it will be a problem for the country if the royal family cannot have a child. To this, the girl only laughed loudly and said that having children would be their least problem. The assistant does not understand what this is based on. The queen explains to him that Zenjiro couldn't take his eyes off her, as if her body itself guaranteed that they would succeed. Meanwhile, Zenjiro is in Japan. His boss asks if he is really quitting. The guy says yes, but his boss explains to him that he has just started to become an important asset to the company, and if he liked the job, he wouldn't have taken it. Zenjiro tells him that he changed his mind because he still won't believe that he's marrying a woman from another world. The boss accepts his departure, but expects productive work from him until he finds a new employee to take his place. Zenjiro understood everything and is glad that this is over and there is not long left until his return. While he was in his world, he prepared for life for a month. When he came home, he sat down at the computer and said that he first needed to look for a power source. After all, on the way back he was so hot that he couldn't sleep, and he would also like to use the air conditioner and refrigerator. But since he is not going to leave the room, he also wants to watch TV series, so he needs a generator. He thinks for a long time about which one he should get. And he makes a choice in favor of a generator that uses water energy. After that, a month flew by unnoticed. After ordering the generator, he had to sign a contract on water laws. He also asked them to make a video tutorial so that he could assemble it in another world, and in a mountain house near the village where he was born, the guy could practice assembling it. Upon entering the house, he notices that the generator is working fine, and in addition, he also received batteries for the generator, and with all this, he can last for 10 years. It would be great if he could get used to another world before the generator breaks down, but now he gets to work. Sometime later, Zenjiro is lying on the floor, tired due to the extremely hot weather, but now all the preparations are complete, and he only needs to contact the transport company to have them deliver the rest of the equipment to the warehouse. Holding a long thing in his hands, the guy asks Aura what it is, and she answers that it is a magic carpet, enchanted with space-time magic. And he must take it with him when he returns, because everything he puts on it will be moved along with it, and the protagonist will only have a short time left on Earth. And soon he will go to another world, but he managed to finish all his business, and now he only has to say goodbye to the Earth, because he has no one here. But is that so? Sometime later, the boy came home to his grandmother. She greeted him, and they sat down to eat. The grandfather says that the boy surprised him because he said that he was going to another country. His brother admires him and says that he also wants to go to another country, but his grandmother tells him that it is very difficult there and very different from Japan. Zenjiro realizes that they haven't changed at all. In his first year of middle school, his parents died in a car accident. Later, he moved into the high school dorms. But before that, he lived in this house with everyone, but they still leave him at the table. Grandfather says that he should enjoy the taste of food. Since he will live there for a long time, the guy begins to eat food from the table with pleasure. Grandma looks at him, and together she is glad that he is okay because they have not seen each other since he graduated from college. His grandfather tells him that if he has any difficulties, he can always call them at any time. Zenjiro says that he will do so. And yet, he is sad to leave them. It is already dark outside. The guy is lying in his bed. He thinks that they really took good care of him. That is why he came. He looks around the room and nothing has changed since then. He still has the feeling that he lives in this house. Jumping out of bed, he says that it's time for him to pull himself together and make a decision. But suddenly, someone knocked on the door. It was his grandmother. He didn't understand what she was doing there, and she asked what was bothering him. It just seemed to her that he was holding back from mentioning something. Zenjiro looked at her and replied that he was just thinking about the trip and became nervous, which is why he asks her for forgiveness. Grandma says that he worries about them a lot, so she asks him to let them worry about him too, because they are family, and no matter what he chooses, they will still support him. The guy is surprised by this, which is why he drops the box with rings on the floor. The grandmother does not understand what it is and asks if everything is okay. He turns to her and thanks her for everything. The grandmother is surprised by his command, and the guy asks for forgiveness for shouting. She just laughs and says that she hasn't seen such an expression on his face for a long time. He doesn't understand what this expression is. Sometime later, he realizes that it was an expression when a man proposes. Zenjiro is preparing to be sent to another world. The guy sat on the floor and noticed that his grandmother knew him through and through. He thanks them, and then uses a stationary knife to pierce his finger. And blood starts to flow from there. The queen said that if there is magic in his blood, then he will be able to use it to activate the magic in this carpet. And this will allow Aura to summon him and everything else to another world. Zenjiro realizes that it has already begun and the magic has activated. While he is falling down, he sees all his memories. The funeral of his parents and how hard it was for him entering college, the days he spent working as a company servant. There were good times and bad times. And yet, he is grateful to the earth for everything. Sometime later, the guy finds himself in another world, and the queen with her servants welcomes him to this kingdom, waking up from the fall. Zenjiro says that he has returned. Bora orders the servants to open and search all his drawers, and if they find anything suspicious, they should bring it to her. One of the servants said that there was alcohol in the containers, but a lot of it spilled during transportation. The girl told them to collect all the remaining containers and provide them with a place in the wine bar. Picking up the shard, Aura is surprised that they are able to create their own crystals. She is also interested in their cost. He also brought a lot of interesting things with him. Zenjiro brought with him items that showed a different culture than they could ever imagine. Aura notices the strange behavior of one servant, and she asks what he hid just now. He says that he would never dare to do such a thing. The girl asks what kind of fabric was there, then asks him to turn around and show her. He fulfills her request and takes out a transparent shirt from the chest, which shocks everyone because the fabric is very thin, and then asks if this was in her husband's things. He says yes, then she apologizes for being rude and that he had such things quite unexpectedly. Meanwhile, Zenjiro is sitting in the room, and it doesn't seem to him that he took something suspicious. Someone knocked on his door, and a maid came in. Her name is Amanda, and she is the head maid who oversees all the servants of the courtyard, then asks if she can take a little of his time to introduce everyone to him. He gives his consent, because he still can't leave this room and has nothing to do. He sees in front of him a bunch of maids sitting on their knees. They began to introduce themselves and say what they are responsible for. Amanda tells him that these four are responsible for different parts of the inner palace, and if he needs anything, then he should contact them. The guy stands in shock, but says that he understood everything. Then they all suddenly stood up. Zenjiro does not understand what this feeling is, and perhaps his answer was too polite. Still, technically, he is the master of the inner palace, and everyone else is his servant. So it would probably be better to consider him superior in rank to everyone present. And apparently there will be problems with this until he gets used to it, and first he should remember the names and faces of everyone. Amanda asks him for permission to introduce the next 9 servants. They give their names, and the guy stands there in bewilderment. The headmaid says that he can contact them even for a minor request. He gathers his strength and wants to ask them to take care of him, but remembers that he has a higher status, so he says that he expects them to do a good job. Everyone breathes a sigh of relief. After a while, Zenjiro comes to the conclusion that being a king level is quite difficult. Aura says that there are things she would like to know more about, but she took the liberty of putting the alcohol she brought into the cellar, and the guy thanks her. The queen asks what the protagonist wishes for. Zenjiro explains to her that he has no idea how a member of the royal family should behave. The girl asks him for some time to think about it, so that in the future she can help him with this issue. Zenjiro will be very grateful to her. They examined all of his belongings and found many interesting things there, which led them to the conclusion that their worlds were very different. Aura mentioned crystals in the conversation. The guy didn't understand if she meant balls, because when he first came to this place, it didn't seem like they had glass in their world. That's why he took him with him, and yet the girl wants him to just relax and rest, because from tomorrow, everyone will be very busy. Zenjiro doesn't understand what's going on. She explains to him that there will be preparations for the wedding, as it will take place in 5 days. The guy says that it is very fast. The queen explains to him that this is the first time in history, but it will not take much time. She asks him for forgiveness. After all, the wedding of a direct descendant of royal blood requires a year of preparation. These weddings are not only ceremonial events, but are also very important in diplomacy. In order to maintain the authority of the kingdom, it is necessary to make the ceremony as majestic as possible. Then Zenjiro asks if that's the case, then hold the wedding as soon as possible, not because she's a queen. The girl notes that the guy is very smart. There were no contenders in her kingdom when the wedding was held for the queen. Then the protagonist says that this wedding will complicate the structure of state power. If she remained on the throne as the sole ruler, and he had a son with another woman, then there would be people who would want to make this child the ruler. Zenjiro says he would never do such a thing, but still, she has nothing to worry about because she will not flinch in the face of any major political machinations. But she can only cool their ardor, and still she will try to burden him as little as possible. But there will be cases when she will have to ask for a favor. The guy understands everything. The ceremony will be quite modest, so she asks him for forgiveness. Sometime later, someone hits the gong, and the wedding ceremony has begun. The guy is surprised by the huge number of people, and he does not understand why she thought it was modest. Looking at Zenjiro, she suggested that he start. The boy nodded in agreement, and they walked towards the altar, both of them moving evenly so as not to cause hatred among those present. People started to talk about him, saying that he had pretty good manners, and also that he liked pure redheads and they hoped that the child would inherit their bloodline magic. This really stresses the guy out, causing him to become very nervous, and he can no longer feel his legs, his head starts spinning, and he realizes that he can't look back. And then suddenly he realizes that he is starting to fall, but Aura catches him in time, not allowing him to fall, and the main character realizes that he is saved from shame. He knew that the girl was already used to this, and he needed to do it too, because starting from today, he would be a member of the royal family. And he gives himself a sensitive instruction to go forward, because this is his first fundamental duty. Perhaps he was like a child who has just learned to walk. But for him, this is the beginning of an ideal life in another world, so he is going to go to the end. Approaching the altar, they made an oath to each other and put on the rings. And then they came out to the common people, who greeted them enthusiastically and were glad of their union. It was already deep night outside, and the heroes were finally able to rest. The guy is glad that they were able to get through this. She understands what he has become, but so does she. Zenjiro is embarrassed by her vulgar appearance, so he offers her a drink. The girl agrees. The guy is glad that he was able to hook up the fridge properly and the drinks are cold, but more importantly, it's their wedding night. He had a girlfriend in college. But after breaking up with her, he still has no one. He hands her a glass of wine and does not understand how he should get them in the right mood, because she is a queen. But Aura calls out to him, leaning on the sofa, and says that if he wants, then why doesn't he move closer to her? The queen calls the guy by name and asks why he doesn't sit closer to her on the sofa. The guy is embarrassed by this because they will be sitting very close. But Aura says that everything is fine because they are husband and wife, and since they are alone, they will inevitably become closer, overcoming their moral standards. The guy sat down next to her. And yet, he thinks, isn't he sitting too close? But if he moves away from her now, she might get the wrong idea. It's depressing for the guy. Aura notices this and says that the electrical devices he brought, that is, the fans, are truly amazing. After all, they were fresh and cool. The main character says that she is right, and it took him a lot of time to install the generator. And seeing all these things working was worth all the effort he had put in. It made the girl giggle, and putting the glass on a table, she called out to Zenjiro, and leans against his hand, and the guy feels very awkward. He asks if there are such things in the kingdom of speech as fans, because she mentioned something about the canvas earlier. Aura says that, indeed, in the dual kingdom of Sharoa and Jelbel lives the royal family of Sharoa, which specializes in enchantment magic, and the royal family of Gilbel, who specializes in healing magic. The magic they use is enchanted, making them the only kingdom in the world capable of creating magic items. At night, they use the light pearls for light and the wind pearls for cooling when it's hot, which Zenjiro now realizes they do with magic. But then Aura suddenly grabs the guy by the face and pulls him closer to her. She says that something has been bothering her all the time. The guy doesn't understand what exactly. The girl tells him that he continues to talk to her as if they were strangers, using formality, and doesn't he think that something needs to be done about this? After all, they have now become husband and wife. But the guy can say the same thing about Aura. The girl explains to him that she always spoke like that, and it is not because she communicates with him in an official manner. And then asks if she can call him by his name. This makes Zenjiro blush, and he agrees to her request. In response, the girl asks him to call her simply by her name. They both do this, and slowly approach each other, and after a moment their lips intertwine. But they do not finish there and continue to enjoy each other. And yet, the girl is the first to stop kissing and hugs the guy and tells him that she will go to the bedchamber because she needs to prepare for a lot. Therefore, as soon as he counts to 100, he will be able to enter. Zenjiro is very nervous about this, but Aura explains to him that she will not run away from him. And so the guy is left sitting alone in the room. As soon as Aura closes the door and goes deeper into the room, she begins to feel shy. And then he says that every night, as husband and wife, they will participate in such a joyful but still embarrassing act, and yet the girl worries whether Zenjiro noticed anything. She hadn't felt like she was going into her first fight for a long time, and yet she didn't understand what to do. Taking off all her clothes, she turned to the lamp because it was very bright. And sitting down on the bed, she exhales, and then the main character knocks on the door and asks if he can come in, and in the meantime, the naked girl lies on the bed and waits for him. And then she asks how much longer he is going to stand there, and there is no need to hold back, and then she asks him to let them spend a passionate night together. And now they are both naked, making love. During all this, the guy calls the girl's name. You can see how they both enjoy each other. From gentle touches, kisses, and active body movements, the girl did not stop screaming throughout the entire time. Sometime later, when they finished, the girl could not get up because of fatigue and was breathing loudly, trying to get her breathing in order. The main character wiped the sweat off her and at the same time asked her for forgiveness. The girl asks if this means they're done. Zenjiro asks if she liked it. Aura tells him that she's been through bloodbaths many times. But this was the first time she considered giving up. The guy asks for forgiveness for this, but she tells him not to do it because she is his wife. And she suggests that he go to bed, because tomorrow they have a parade in the capital. The guy will need to learn a lot. But the guy forgot something and asks the girl to wait for him a little until he returns. He comes back with a box. The girl doesn't understand what it is. He removes the cloth from the lamp so she can see better, and then explains that it is a tradition in his world. When a man and a woman get married, they put love rings on each other as a sign of fidelity, and then he asks for her left hand. Aura offers him her hand. Zenjiro promises to love and honor her, to be her support and pillar, in sorrow and in joy, in wealth and in poverty, until death do them part. He makes an oath with this ring. The happy girl upsets the ring on her finger, and now he asks her to put the ring on him too. Aura does as he asks, and Zenjiro says that they are done. The girl is simply surprised by such an interesting tradition, and they go to bed. Sometime later, the guy's alarm clock rings. 10 days have passed since that night, and he has already gotten used to life here. In Japan, this time of rising was early for him, but here it is considered late because the sunrise is especially valuable for them. The girl is ready to go out, and the guy asks what her plans are for today and if she wants to eat together. Aura will only be free for dinner, but if she wants to have lunch with her, she can come to the palace. But he has no desire to go there, because there are many noble people there. He says that he will simply stay here and wait for her. Aura asks him for forgiveness, but promises to return for dinner. They kiss each other goodbye, and the girl leaves, and the guy lies down on the bed and thinks about what he should do. He has a lot of DVDs, a bunch of unopened games and songs of his favorite bands. And he decided that today he would rewatch TV programs. Meanwhile, Aura is in the office. Her assistant says that the time has come. She wonders who she will talk to next. The man tells her that it is the commander of the knights, General Pujoru Gijen. The girl is surprised, because this is a former candidate for her husband, and yet she allows him to come in. The man, first of all, congratulates her on her marriage. Aura thanks him and says that she will continue to value their relationship as a ruler and a subject. He is flattered by her words, but the girl stops him, saying that she does not have time for friendly conversations. And she wonders why he came here. The general explains to her that he has a sister who is distantly related to the royal family. Therefore, he suggests that Zenjiro take his sister as a concubine to expand the royal line, a proposal that Aura doesn't particularly like. The general offers the main character to take his sister as his concubine in order to expand the royal family. The queen is interested in what the girl herself thinks about this. He doesn't understand the essence of his question, and Aura explains to him that she is aware that he is the head of the Gijen family, but her husband has just arrived in this world and is not used to living in this place. And besides, his hands are already occupied with her. The general asks if this is exactly what Zenjiro said. Aura says that, of course. And does he really think that she is lying? The man refutes these thoughts and asks for forgiveness for being rude, and finally he asks to meet the main character. After all, he became his master. Sighing heavily, Aura said that she would convey his words to Zenjiro. The man bowed to her and said that he was deeply grateful to her. The queen and her assistant discuss the outgoing general, that his crude ambitions are impressive. After all, first his own wedding failed, now he uses his sister. The assistant says that others will appear with similar assumptions. And if she continues to refuse them, it will be problematic, because there are many rumors that Her Majesty is depriving her own husband of freedom in order to maintain power. The girl would like to answer them that her husband of his own free will wanted to stay in the inner palace, but they will not believe her. Then the assistant says that Zenjiro will need to leave the castle and show that they are both together. Aura asks Fabio how long the nobles will hold back their discontent while her husband remains in the castle. He guesses at least a month. The queen then decides to hire him a teacher to teach him magic and the customs of this world, and then asks how many candidates they have. He says there are only 6 of them. Most of them are unmarried and are clearly trying to become his concubine. Aura wonders how much they underestimate her. However, they recommended one person to her that they cannot ignore, and that is Count Octavia's wife, and she is known for having no flaws. The girl is surprised that her own husband recommended her, although this is her personal opinion, but she believes that his goal is to force his wife to take him away from under the queen's nose. The girl reasons that Octavia herself has no evil intent, and the problem will be the Count and his sophisticated mind, but she cannot refuse them. Fabio distracts her from her thoughts and asks what she will do in the end, since they cannot refuse, but there is no answer to the question. Some time later, while naked in the bath, she tells Zenjiro that he will have to make a public debut within a month. Climbing into the bath, the boy does not understand what she is talking about. And Aura starts to provoke him, and the guy understands that the queen's husband must show himself in public. He turns to her and says that he will do everything possible. But the girl asks him for forgiveness because she promised him a carefree life. Zenjiro says that he is fine and is interested in his teacher. After thinking for a while, the girl says that the teacher can be called trustworthy, and then says that, to begin with, she will teach him all the royal manners. The guy is not sure that he can remember something so quickly, and he wonders if there is such a good way to remember everything. And then a brilliant idea comes to his mind, and after a moment he is already holding a camera in his hands, saying that this is exactly what he was looking for, a digital camera. Aura doesn't understand what kind of box this is. Zenjiro starts to explain to her all the functions of the camera, but this doesn't make it clear to the girl, and she looks even more surprised. But then he simply tells her to start, and then he will figure it out himself. The girl begins to teach him, and first of all, she wants to teach him how he should behave with people of lower status. After all, it's rare that they can meet someone above their status, and Aura spends some time enthusiastically telling him about all the intricacies. After finishing filming, the guy asks Aura if she minds if he checks the video, but first he needs to transfer the file to his laptop. Aura appears on the monitor screen. The girl is surprised that she sees herself on the screen and hears everything she said earlier, but Zenjiro notices something, and the girl speaks in a language he does not understand, but it is called the soul of words, the magic of a number of people, which allows them to exchange the meaning of words through different languages. The existence of magic is the main difference between their worlds. Moreover, he completely forgot to learn the written language of this world. Having written something on a piece of paper, the guy takes it and thanks the girl, thinking that he will be able to learn the letters, twirling the ballpoint pen in his hands. Aura is surprised by its versatility. Zenjiro says that she can take it for herself. Then the guy asks to teach him the numbers of this world, but Aura says that remembering all the numbers will be quite difficult. And he begins to teach him numbers from 1 to 10, and then the boy realizes that there are no numbers in this world because before Arabic numerals came to Japan, they were doing complex calculations using Chinese numerals, using an abacus and a ruler, and the girl asked if by numerals he meant special symbols for writing numbers. He says yes, and asks her to let him teach her a little. Aura is amazed by the numbers, finally realizing what Arabic numerals mean. Zenjiro says that they are much more convenient to use. The girl agrees with him, however, she only does what benefits from his favors. The guy asks her not to worry about it. After all, he was ready to fulfill the duties of a husband from the very beginning, and compared to his office work, everything is pretty good. Aura then asks if he is experiencing any inconvenience, since she knows that he avoids contact with strangers due to his understanding of her situation, and even the servants only speak well of him. She asks him to tell her what he wants, because she wants to pay him back at least a little. He says that he has no complaints, but then an idea rarely comes to him. He asks her to pay him back with her body for what happened in the bathroom. The girl grabs his hands, trying to kiss him, and the guy suddenly turns around and walks away from her. This makes Aura nervous, and she asks if he is feeling unwell. He explains to her that he wanted to make the first move, but the girl got ahead of him, and this hurt his pride. After thinking for a while, the girl fell onto the sofa with a scream, but Zenjiro says that it is too late, and he did nothing. But the girl continued to fall until the moment when the main character himself approached her. A few days later, Zenjiro is sitting at the laptop. After the girl taught him the letters of the language, she assigned him to keep track of the kingdom's tax returns for the previous year. Seeing the error, she asked him to fix it. The guy did it right away, then she wondered why some columns were blue and some were red. Zenjiro explains to her that the red numbers mean that the person did not pay as much as they should have. and the blue ones mean that people paid more than they should have. And this method makes his job easier. She asks if he minds if she borrows this piece of paper from him for a while. He says yes. She brings this paper to her assistant, and he is interested in what she brought. She explains to him that it is about the taxes of important nobles for the past year, and she gave this work to her husband, which he did very well, and then asks if his wariness of her husband is only growing. He says that he actually thinks his desire to participate in politics is very low. However, he cannot doubt that such a convenient husband would so voluntarily agree to change his principles in order not to reduce the political power of the queen. And he is sure that she should not treat him with fear. The queen accepts his point of view and asks for forgiveness for the inconvenience caused. Fabio says he's had a lot of problems since he became her secretary, but Aura says the discrepancies in some nobles' tax deductions are simply unthinkable. And if you put too much pressure on them, it could lead to an uprising. And all those who were mentioned by her earlier made a huge contribution to the previous war. And seeing that conflict is inevitable in such a situation, Fabio then suggests that she notify them informally about the discovery of discrepancies in the documents they checked, and to ask to cooperate of his own free will. This suits the girl, and she leaves this matter to the secretary, after which he leaves. Meanwhile, Zenjiro, he is peacefully waiting for the teacher at the table. He remembers what Aura taught him and understands that it is very difficult to apply all the knowledge in practice. But then there is a knock on the door, and the maid asks permission to enter, because she has brought Octavia. The guy tells them to enter, and when the door opens, the girl greets him. She said that she was glad to meet him, and that she was the wife of Count Manuel from the county of the Marquis of the Kingdom of Capua, and her name was Octavia. Octavia enters the room and says that she is the wife of Count Manuel Marquez of the Marquez counties of the Kingdom of Capua, and her name is Octavia, and she is overly flattered by the responsibility given to her. Now Zenjiro understood why she was considered the ideal lady, and apparently modesty was also loved in this country. Her black straight hair that shines in the sun, as well as her fair skin tone, he realizes that now is not the time to look at her, and then asks her to raise her head. The girl fulfills his request. The main character also introduces himself and says that his name is Zenjiro, and he is the husband of Queen Aura, although he does not know how long their acquaintance will last. But he hopes that they will get along with each other, folding hands. Octavia says that she is flattered by his words. Then he invites the girl to sit down, and she tells him what she will teach him today. The girl is a little surprised, and then she says that she will definitely tell him if he forgives her. After a short conversation, Zenjiro clarifies if she intends to teach him history and magic in small parts at a time, as well as correct his behavior, manners, and common sense. Octavia says that's right, because manners and common sense are things that are hard to learn without practice. Then the protagonist asks why she's having lunch with him. The girl says that he was right on target and that these qualities are most important at the dinner table, so she thought that was the best place to study them. Now everything becomes clear to Zenjiro, and there is sense in her words. However, eating under the supervision of an etiquette teacher will be quite difficult. He says that he understands everything, and since she thinks it is necessary, he has no objections, and he is interested to know how effective it will be. Octavia thanks him, then she suggests that he start right from the moment she entered the room. Didn't he stand up to greet her? The guy is a little uneasy about this, and Octavia continues and says that she is honored that he greeted her properly, but with respect for his position. If he deigned to greet someone of lower class in this manner, they would most likely not think much of him, and what's more, he offered her a seat while he was standing, which is also excessive kindness to someone of her class. And for the royal family, it is better to accept the wolf people modestly. The guy understands that he made many mistakes, so he assured the girl that he would improve, and then he realized that his old office worker habits had awakened, and it looked like changing his habits would take some time. Then Octavia asks to let her talk about magic. The main character asks her to start, but the girl asks him to stop addressing her so politely. The guy immediately corrects himself, and the girl begins her explanation that magic is mainly divided into two types. The first is the magic of the four elements, which can be used by almost anyone. And pedigree magic can be used by people with a special pedigree. The guy asks her a clarifying question, to which the girl answers positively. And in order to use magic, 3 conditions must always be met: correct pronunciation, correct presentation, and the correct amount of mana. Also, there is a language of its own for magic, and he cannot use magic unless he uses the magic language and then asks him to watch over her. She puts her finger to her mouth and begins to read the spell, and lightning swirls around her, and a drop of water appears above her finger. The guy was in great shock, and a drop fell into the girl's mug, and then she asks for forgiveness for her carelessness, and the magic language is complicated by the fact that the slightest change in volume, an accent or intonation, can change its meaning, and the one who hears it for the first time feels discomfort. She says that with his permission, she will continue further. And, as he noticed earlier, she was able to use magic, which allowed her to create a free ball, and now she will do the opposite, and now she will intentionally make 3 mistakes. She says a word, and then laughs, and because of that her spell doesn't activate, and now she's using the correct pronunciation but the wrong idea. She casts some kind of spell. Zenjiro says that he has already heard a similar spell. Octavia explains to him that, as he noticed, she cast the correct spell. But she thought about activating another one, and, as a result, nothing happened. And finally, she will try to use the right intonation and image, but this time she will deliberately make 20 mana offerings. She starts casting a spell, and smoke appears around her finger. The guy is amazed, but after a second the smoke disappears, and he was sure that he would create a bigger ball. Then he asks if sacrificing too much mana is also bad. The girl tells him that he understood everything correctly, and if you sacrifice too much or too little mana, the magic will not activate at all. The guy nodded affirmatively, making it clear that he understood her, and, after listening to her conversation about magic, he himself was eager to learn magic, but he was worried about one question. Didn't that mean that it would be difficult for a person like him with a lot of mana to use basic magic? Octavia confirmed his suspicions. And it doesn't compare to the Queen's magic, so he asks how much she thinks he will need to use magic. The girl says that it will be necessary to spend a lot of time to evaluate how much mana he has, as well as how it should be used, therefore. She thinks it will take 2 years to understand the amount of his mana, and another year to freely learn how to manipulate mana. This worries the guy a little, but Octavia begins to calm him down, after which Zenjiro says that they have nowhere to rush, and asks him to teach everything well. The girl asks to provide it to her, and now the protagonist has no reason to rush to study magic, and he decided that it would be better to just learn more than just royal etiquette. Sometime later, Aura asks how his lesson went. He says that he was more tired than he thought, and Octavia made a lot of comments to him. The girl asks him for forgiveness for this. He says that everything is fine, and besides, he likes everything, but he is a little upset that it will take him 3 years to study magic. He wonders if he can shorten his training, but the girl leans closer to him and asks what he's thinking, if Octavia is attractive. Zenjiro says that she is beautiful and pleasant as a person. Then Aura asks if he finds her desirable. The guy immediately denies it and starts making excuses. This only makes Aura laugh. Then she asks what he is trying to say, and why doesn't he just say it straight out and keep it quiet? The protagonist can no longer contain himself, so he raises his voice and declares that if it had been Octavia who had summoned him in the first place, he would not be with Aura. The guy's whole face turns red. He watches Aura's reaction, and she just smiles and now understands the whole situation, and then says that she also couldn't think that she could be happier, calling anyone other than him, after which she pulls him to her and their lips merge together, sometime later, late at night. The protagonist and Aura are sleeping in bed, but the girl suddenly wakes up, and then, looking at her husband's sleeping face, quietly, on tiptoe, leaves the room, leaving him alone. And so she sat down on the sofa, and the servants approached her and apologized for the intrusion. Aura said that she wanted to hear her report. The maid said that from what she noticed, Octavia did not take any suspicious actions, the Queen reasons. And she comes to the conclusion that, as she assumed, Octavia is in the castle for reconnaissance, and then says, turning to the maid, that from now on, let her report only in the event of suspicious actions on the part of the girl. Then she asks how her husband spends his time. She says that the guy doesn't like it when they enter the room at all, so they appear there only when necessary. Aura says that her husband is not very good at asserting himself, so she asks the servants to determine what he wants and make sure his demands are met. And then he says that she can be free. The maid bows to her and leaves. After sitting in silence for a while, she realized that Zenjiro does not see Octavia as a potential concubine. She cannot understand what this excitement is growing inside her, and how it is so different from success in political affairs or a victory toast. The girl smiles at the realization of this. The next morning, Octavia enters the room and is congratulated on her arrival home. The girl asks if he is in his place. The butler answers her that he is, and that the owner is waiting for her on the second floor. Having climbed the stairs to the second floor and stepped into the room, the girl greets her husband, saying that they haven't seen each other for a long time. The man congratulates her on her return. Octavia's husband praises her, saying that she did a good job, and also asks her for forgiveness for having to dump everything on her so suddenly. The girl, smiling, says that there is no need to say words of gratitude to her, because she was so flattered by the opportunity to teach someone as respected as the main character. Sitting down on a chair, her husband says that everything is true, because his wife has always been like this, and then asks what the outcome is with this Zenjiro and what she found out after their conversation. The man said that he understood everything, and it seems to him that the main character is from a rather conservative and unambitious type of people. Octavia adds that Zenjiro is indeed a very kind person, and she believes that he is a worthy man with a great thirst for knowledge. Then her husband asks her if, for example, she were to wipe the concubine for the main character, then whom would she choose? This question takes the girl by surprise, and she thinks for a while, and then says that she thinks it would be in his best interest to stop whatever he was planning. He wonders what made her come to this conclusion. The girl explains to him that she saw the guy with Aura only a few times, but she believes that they have a rather close relationship. And even if the concubine came, she would be out of place. The man notices and says that they are apparently close, because he can't believe that a man could love this Queen Aura so much. Unlike Octavia, who was practically born a goddess and the perfect woman for any man, a woman like Queen Aura can hardly be called attractive. And he asks to once again verify that the girl claims that Zenjiro sincerely loves Her Highness Queen Aura with all his heart. Octavia says that this is exactly how it is, and there is no doubt about it, because the main character has no ambitions or thirst for power, so she believes that this is the only reason why he was able to leave his world. There was his love for Her Highness, in which case it would be in their best interests to support both of them, crossing her arms. Octavia says that she also believes that this is the best choice, and her husband doesn't think that among his numerous pawns there will be anyone of Her Majesty Aura's type, so sending concubines will also be pointless. Especially not when the Marquez family can already boast of decent authority, and if so, then there is no need to risk sending concubines. Until the right opportunity arises, he will simply stand aside and hope that their relationship will only get better, and then say that he does not understand what kind of strange taste Zenjiro has in women. Meanwhile, Aura stands in front of the army and thinks to herself that even their hairless beasts are so quiet, and she notes that this regiment is quite good, and then hitting her hand with a pointer says that they can begin. The general heard her, so with all the strength he had, he shouted that the army could begin training, and in response he received a violent reaction. The warriors began their training with loud cries, and the general and the queen watched from the side. Then the girl allowed the man for working hard, training these men to such an extent. General Pajoru thanks the girl for her kind words, and then says that currently about 80% of the men in front of her have exceeded the requirements to become a soldier, and he is confident that they will be able to reach the required number by the end of this year or early next year. After the arrows hit the target, the queen notes that they are very fast and, moreover, strong in spirit, as sad as it is for the general to say this. But the dragon-riding archer knights are the very backbone of their country's army, and they were the ones who suffered the heaviest losses in the previous war. And it will take a lot of money and time to replenish the ranks, and the fact that they were able to replenish 80% of the losses in just 5 years is an impressive achievement. Then he stops and asks Her Highness to direct her gratitude towards the breeders in the dragon stables, because they deserve their respect the most. The girl looks at him and then says that he is right, because the lifespan of hunting dragons is only about 50 years, and most of them were killed in the war. And she's sure it took a lot of effort to get them on a diet and back on their feet. Maybe it's a small reward, but their budget will increase next year. The general is very grateful to her, and as soon as he confirms the amount of funds, he will immediately make a list of the army's needs. Turning around, the girl tells him that she hopes for him. Thanks to Zenjiro, she was able to get a fairly large sum of money from nobles who evaded taxes. The man tells her that, fortunately, a large number of senior military officials would be attending a banquet in the capital in 2 days, so he doubted that writing the report would take much time. The girl understands that Zenjiro has no shadow of ambition, while Pajoru is the very embodiment of it, and she can imagine that they will be together like fire and water. But he doesn't know what will happen in the end. The general also adds that his younger sister is also looking forward to Zenjiro, and he would be grateful if the protagonist could spend time with her. The girl said that she would definitely pass on his words to her husband. Sometime later, in a country where there is no electricity, a huge amount of money is spent on holding a night banquet. Moreover, the high tables prepared for the banquet were each made of solid wood and were covered with the most exquisite delicacies. It was a royal palace night banquet. The girl asks Zenjiro to let her introduce him to Baron Pantoja, and in the previous war he served as the commander of the knights and is now a feudal lord. The man says it's a great honor to meet him. The guy thanks him for it, and then he realizes it's more exhausting than he imagined. Now he understood what the job of the royal family was, and now he wondered how many more names he had to remember. He would be glad if they just handed him a business card with their names on it. And then he just started giving everyone nicknames so he could remember them easier. And then Aura calls out to him and gives him water, saying that she's really tired him out. But during this banquet, all that is required of him is the ability to dance, and there is no need to pay too much attention to manners. So this is the perfect place to debut. Then Zenjiro says that he will take a little breather and gradually get used to everything. Aura says that this is a good idea. And then Octavia comes up to them with her husband. Zenjiro thinks that her husband looks like her father and a beautiful second wife. Every man's dream. Aura squeezes the guy's hand as hard as possible, and this is a signal to him that the person standing in front of him is very important and his name and face must be remembered. Octavia and her husband greet them. Zenjiro says that his wife took good care of him. Aura also asks the count not to be modest. The man thanks them for such kind words, and as they had planned, Aura took over the talking and he had to not leave a bad impression. And perhaps, being in the delicate position of the queen's husband, it is better not to make any impression by going out onto the balcony and drinking his drink, and remembering that their goals the banquet was to show everyone their good relationship. Everything is going according to plan, and he is interested in how the rest of the night will go. In this country, it is considered rude for a lower class to address a higher class. And unless they have ambitions, they will not approach him, and apparently he himself will have to start the conversation first. But then, suddenly, someone asks to give him a little time. He wonders who this man is. Turning around, he sees his military uniform and realizes it is Lord Pujo. The man says he has a gift for Zenjiro, so he turns to him. The guy realized that this was the man he should be wary of, and then he said that he had no need to kneel in such a place, and then the man stood up. While Zenjiro was surprised that the man was so tall, and then asked what kind of gift he meant, the general called the servant with the tray to him. The guy understands that he cannot refuse the gift. He is surprised that the man actually brought a gift, because usually they just give certificates, and yet he is interested in what kind of gift it is. And after the sheet was removed, he saw an incomprehensible object in front of him, and if the receiving party did not like the gift, the giver will face indescribable humiliation. Aura watches this from afar and silently asks Zenjiro not to accept this gift. Zenjiro doesn't understand what this thing is. The general explains to him that it's a bow. He explains to him that the bowstring was removed so that they could get him into the palace. That's why it has such a strange shape. But he assures the protagonist that it is a fully working dragon bow. Everyone present starts to gasp in admiration. Zenjiro notices this and wonders if this bow is really valuable. The man continues to explain to him and says that the dragon bow is made from a thin piece of wood as a base, bent sinew, and the rib torn out from a hunting dragon, and it can even be used as a symbol of dragon-riding knights, and despite the length being half as short as the longbows of the rifle troops, it surpasses longbows in both strength and range, and, moreover, because it provides a better grip than bows, an experienced fighter can make a very fast and accurate weapon out of it. However, on the other hand, only a small number of knights can afford their own dragon bow, and the main reason for this is the fact that the tendons and bones are flexible. The materials used come from maturing hunting dragons, which are limited in quantity, and, since the materials are extremely valuable, they also require a lot of effort to process. And time. The guy is a little stressed out by this, and if you think about it, he has already heard about this from Aura, and this bow is a very valuable gift for him, considering this whole situation. The general waits for his answer, but Zenjiro wants to clarify something with him, whether anyone can easily use this dragon bow. The man answers him that no, because even for the average soldier, it is not unusual to have difficulty drawing his bowstring, and to master it, he needs to undergo rigorous training. The guy says that he understands everything, and the girl understands what his goal is, and it would be one thing if he was simply given a precious sword or jewelry. However, it is quite another thing if he accepts a real weapon in order to use it later, and if the main character does this. Then it will be difficult to refuse the general when he comes to personally train him or invites him to hunt. Aura really wants to intervene, but she can't because of the Count. And the man understood what was going on and looked at the girl sarcastically, thinking to himself that she was afraid that if she interfered, everyone would think that she was keeping her husband on a short leash. But speaking of this whole situation, the Lord did not expect such impudence from Lord Pujo, and he believed that the general really lived up to his reputation as a stormy wolf. And he becomes interested in how the main character will cope with these situations, because it is at this moment that his qualities as a member of the royal family are tested, so he will have to try. After clearing his throat with a cough, Zenjiro stretches out first one of his hands, and then the other, thereby calming down those present at the banquet hall at the moment. Everyone is standing in shock. The protagonist, turning to the general, says that he is grateful to him for such a valuable gift, but he asks him to look at his thin hands. And even such an experienced warrior as he must admit that he is weak and will not be able to provide any help in battle, the general completely agrees with his words. But Zenjiro doesn't let him finish and continues his speech about how giving him this bow would be a complete waste. He tells the general that he is sure that among his subordinates there are many knights who do not yet have their own bows, and since this is so, he then asks if he could give this bow to the most loyal and skilled knight, and Zenjiro is confident that this would be the best use for this bow. Everyone present stared at them. Then the general began to say that he understood him, and in order not to betray his expectations, he promised the guy that he would find one truly devoted one and give him this bow. All the people started to scream horoscope, and Aura praises the guy because he did a great job, although his male reputation suffered, but his refusal of the bow, as well as a recommendation for whom it is more suitable. Allowing the general to avoid embarrassment, the Count asks the girl if that wasn't a promising answer. Aura says that she still does, and asks for forgiveness, since they were interrupted in the middle of the conversation. The man calms her down and says that it is nothing, and it is quite natural that her gaze will involuntarily follow Zenjiro. The girl is glad to hear this. And the general and Zenjiro continue their conversation. The man says that the guy's role is to make sure that descendants are left, so he asks to leave all the dangerous things to them. Zenjiro thanks him, and the general says that in the event of the birth of a child from him and Lady Aura, and in his humble opinion, the protagonist should get a concubine so that she can bear the child. That he will continue his own line. Zenjiro is confused by his proposal, but the general suggests that he change the subject. Also a member of the royal family, he brought his younger sister with him today, and since she is here, he would like to take the chance to introduce her to him. The protagonist realizes that they have gone off topic. Aura watches them from the side and clicks her tongue, thinking to herself that this can't be helped and it looks like it. That he would have to prepare to slightly spoil his reputation, while the Count, standing next to the Queen, was thinking. She began to distance herself from him, and he noticed it. And then he caught her attention with his cough, which made her turn around, and then he said that he remembered that he had not yet greeted General Pujo, and he said that he understood that their conversation was not over, but asked Her Majesty if he could leave for a moment to greet him. The girl understands what the Count has in mind, and in that case, she should say that, in that case, she should also join him. And she thinks she can do it, because Aura can't just interfere in her husband's conversation without starting bad rumors, and she wonders if the Count doesn't want the Queen to remain in his debt. But apparently she doesn't have a choice, so she asks if he would mind if she joined him. The Count, with a smile on his face, replies that no, and all three approach General Pujo and the main character, and the man did not waste time and already brought his younger sister, and also asked permission to introduce her, and her name is Fatima. The girl bows and also once again states her first and last name. And then he says that it is a great honor for her to be granted an audience by Zenjiro himself. The protagonist looks at her and realizes that she is very beautiful. She's also tall and almost a head taller than him, and he helps, which is nothing less than what you'd expect from General Pujo's younger sister. But then Aura intervenes and says that she finally saw his sister, and then notes that she and her brother really do look alike. And Fatima, laughing shyly, says that she's often told this. She wants to address the guy, but the Count gets ahead of her, and he says that since we are talking about the young lady from the house of Gijen, Lady Fatima is famous throughout the country for her intelligence and beauty. And then he tells her that she has become even more beautiful since their last meeting. This makes the girl nervous, and she doesn't understand what he's getting at. But to show his gratitude, General Peugeot bursts into their dialogue and tells his younger sister that the Count is not the kind of man who would be flattered by her beauty. After all, he already has a wife whose beauty surpasses hers. Fatima wants to object to her brother, but he gives her a fierce look, which makes the girl fall silent. And then, turning around, he says that, indeed, standing next to Octavia, she cannot help but lose confidence in herself. The Count's wife laughed quietly, and then she said that she is the eldest of them, so Fatima is much nicer to her. The girl begins to get irritated by this, and she says that Octavia is too modest. With a heavy sigh, the man says that his sister still has a lot to learn, and yet, he says that his sister has many good qualities. She also has experience in taking care of others, so she can perform the duties of a lady-in-waiting. Aura says that she will definitely take her as a maid, and then they exchange glances with each other. The guy would really like them to calm down. Then the general asks what type of women Zenjiro likes, and he is interested in who else, besides the queen, could interest him. He says he never thought about it. The Count just laughs at how close they are. He asks to stop teasing him. And then the Count says that the kingdom is in good hands, and they exchange glances with the general, after which he says that it is time to finish. He is glad that the queen has found herself a good husband. She agrees with his words, and in the end, everything ends peacefully sometime later after the banquet. Leda is on the couch. The guy is glad that it's all over, and the girl asks him for forgiveness for it and is glad that he was able to show himself. And then he gives him a cold towel, and then asks how he liked the event itself, what he remembers most about his brother and sister Gijen. She asks what he thinks of him. He says that he is the type of person who has either an enemy or a friend for everyone. Aura says that he separates the friends he comes in contact with. She is pleased with his insight, and yet he is prejudiced against him, because he was a candidate for Aura's husband. She says that everything is fine. But the girl suddenly takes off her clothes and asks what he thinks about Fatima. The guy gets embarrassed and says that the light is too bright. The girl leans on him with her whole body and asks what's the matter. If he can't see well, then why is he confused? Zenjiro says that he sees everything clearly and distinctly. This pleases Aura. Several months have passed since Zenjiro's debut in high society. There are no abrupt changes of seasons like in Japan. Aura and her husband are playing a game. The girl is clearly losing. The guy doesn't understand how she can do this. Zenjiro evaluates her capabilities and believes that victory is already in his pocket. But the girl does not give up and continues to play. This confuses the guy, and in the end she wins. Zenjiro is surprised by this, and Aura explains to him that a person ruling a kingdom must be able to see many steps ahead. The main character is sad because he was defeated. The girl does not understand what is happening to him because he usually likes to compete. Zenjiro says that he seems to be feeling unwell, so he plans to get some water. Aura asks him to get her some water too, if it's not too much trouble. The guy says that it's good, and as soon as he gets up, he stumbles and falls to the floor. This seriously frightens the girl. She immediately runs up to him. Sometime later, the queen's assistant enters the room and apologizes for the intrusion, then asks if she is okay. Aura says she is fine, but she's worried about her husband's condition, and she sent Dr. Michel to examine him, and he has quite a high temperature and cannot get out of bed. The girl asks what he thinks about this and what kind of disease it is. He asks if the girl said something about an enchanted healing stone earlier. He says that, although it is valuable, by using it they can be sure that the disease is cured, and it is true that they will not be able to decide anything until Dr. Michel finishes his examination. However, if it turns out that Zenjiro is afflicted with some fatal disease, they will obviously need to use the stone. And their kingdom can't afford to lose Zenjiro. The girl still can't understand what kind of illness has befallen him. The assistant says that since they sleep together, then he could have become infected with a disease that she had long ago recovered from, and then the girl realized what it could be, sometime later. Aura sits next to Zenjiro. The guy asks what the blessing of the forest is. The girl explains to him that it is an infection that has been going on since ancient times. And it is not so scary, even if symptoms appear. It is impossible to die, and, moreover, having fallen ill with it once, he will not catch it again. Now it becomes clear to him what the name is. She tells him that after resting for 3 days or maximum 7, he should be able to recover on his own, so there is nothing to worry about. Zenjiro doesn't understand if she's serious now, and if he returned to Earth with this bacteria and his antibodies to it, he would receive the Nobel Prize. Then Aura says that since he is sick, someone should look after him, and it would be better for them to allow entry into his room, since he is causing trouble for the maids. If possible, he would like to avoid this, because when he is sick, his nerves are frayed. Aura wants to convince him otherwise, but Zenjiro says that everything is fine, and he can change his clothes on his own, and if he needs anything, he will use the bell. The girl understood him. The gravy rises. And he asks what he would like for lunch. The guy says he wants porridge with dried plums or soy sauce and egg. Aura doesn't understand what porridge is, and she also doesn't know some of the ingredients, so the guy says that he will eat everything, and yet the girl will order the kitchen to prepare luxurious dishes. He thanks her for this and remains in the room alone. The main character did not want anyone to see his selfish side, so he asked everyone to leave. Covering himself with a blanket, he declares that he must get better as soon as possible, or he will die of shame. Sometime later, the girl is still standing and thinking about the composition of the porridge, and he tries to understand what this is. Unknown lands, unfamiliar clothes, and food he has never tried before. In the end, isn't all she does is deprive him of his rights and freedom. There is a sharp knock on the door, which sobers the girl from her thoughts, and the assistant apologizes for the intrusion and says that a flying dragon has arrived from the eastern border point with a message. The girl is surprised that he is from the eastern border, then asks him to show her, and unfolding the paper, she learns that this morning is Princess Isabella. Arriving at the eastern border point, accompanied by her personal guards, she requested a pass out of the country, so, as per the agreement, they allowed her entry with a condition. Disarmament in populated areas. The assistant is surprised by the princess's visit and is surprised that someone was so sick that they needed the princess's own power. Aura agrees with him. If you're dealing with Isabella, then you're dealing with one of the most skilled users of healing magic in the entire papal family. Aura assumes that she is already done with the treatment, so she refers them to use her magic to send Isabella back to her home country. The man assumes that since she is accompanied by a thick group of guards, they must have taken quite a few magical objects with them. This is because, with a large number of guards, they will become much slower, and by arming a small number of guards with magical items, they gain a lot in speed. Then the girl notes that they had little time. Then she tells the secretary to find out who sent the request for healing. The man understood her, and the only problem left would be her husband. The assistant says that they will arrive to them in 5 days. Zenjiro may not be cured by then. Aura says that it will be a problem and she doesn't want foreigners visiting his room. Therefore, he asks to prepare other chambers for him, and it doesn't matter from which side. If the princess wants to visit him, then they cannot refuse her. And in that case, it will be very great if there are no problems. Sometime later, the princess has already arrived in the kingdom of Capua, and she greets Aura, saying that they haven't seen each other for a long time, and the first thing she would like to do is congratulate her on her marriage. The queen says that it's all thanks to Isabella, and she was also flattered by her gift. The girl was pleased that she liked it, but she could not attend the wedding due to important matters. Aura wonders if she could find out what the urgent matter was. The princess says no, since it concerns her reputation as a healer. Then she asks, in return, to reveal to her the magic of her youthful appearance. Isabella says that she was born like this. Aura suggests that the support should end with empty chatter. Now the queen invites her to look at a couple of objects, and a secretary enters the room with a tray, and on it are 2 rings and 2 bags. Aura explains to her that it is a tradition in her Muda world to exchange rings after a marriage is over, and she plans to turn them into magical items. She says that the princess can take them in her hand and give her opinion. Isabella wonders if this stone is a crystal, but Aura tells her that it is a diamond. The princess can't believe it, and how she thought that Isabella had never met the stone's things, and perhaps it was a good decision not to wear them to the feast. After all, this way they would attract many keen eyes. The princess understands that she got carried away and asks for forgiveness for this, but Aura calms her down. And then she asks you if these rings are not wonderful. Isabella fully supports her, and then asks what kind of magic the queen would like to fill them with. She says that since it is a rather small decoration, the most common ones would be memory, fire resistance, and water stream. She is interested in her opinion. Aura thinks about it. then says that she would be sensible and not ask for healing, but wouldn't it be too much to ask for stamina restoration? The princess says that it is possible. If she wants it to turn to dust after 5 uses, then Ark will discuss it with her later. Isabella digresses, wondering what is in the bags, and says that it is another of her husband's properties. And she wants Isabella to look at them. The girl opens her mouth in surprise, and then asks for forgiveness for her manners, and she is also interested in what it is. Aura tells her that it is glass and is more fragile than crystals, but it is not so fragile that it will break if it falls on the carpet, and tells her that she can take a closer look at it. And then she says that she would like to sell it to her, and asks for what price she would buy it. Isabella asks if she intends to sell her the jewel. Aura says yes, and waits for her answer. Isabella says that she could hypothetically buy this pearl for 30 gold coins. This shocks the queen. Isabella Gilbel is the princess of the Gilbel papal family of the dual kingdoms of Shiroa and Gilbel. However, being one of the few members of the papal family who can use healing magic, she claims that her baby face is given to her by nature, not magic. As for the gold coin of the kingdom of Capua, its value is equal to approximately 100 silver coins. A low-quality hunting dragon will cost 3 gold coins, and preparing that hunting dragon for battle so it can be ridden by a knight costs another 10 gold coins. And now, the money that Princess Isabella offered for the glass ball, if you don't take into account the small change, for that kind of money you could easily buy a cheap noble estate. She asks the princess if she is asking for 30 gold coins, and she replies with a sweet smile that she is, and that she believes that it will be a fair price. She begins to think, yes, it is not so unheard of for an ornament to cost so much. However, no matter how you look at it, she would never have thought that this glass ball could cost so much. She asks her again if she is serious. Isabella is surprised by such a question and begins to think. At one point, she raises her head with a grin and asks, holding up 5 fingers, how about 50 gold pieces? She doubts anyone would be willing to offer more. She wonders again if she took her answer as meaning it was too cheap, or if perhaps the price increase was intended for other purposes. She starts to think that something is wrong here. She asks, then what about this? She takes something out of the bag. She places the ornament on the table and says that she finds them quite interesting too. They seem to be called beads. The princess looks at them and says that these are also quite amazing things. She examines them and says that there is a small hole right in the center. She thinks that they could be put to quite interesting uses. Aura asks if they are not beautiful. If she just threads a string through the holes, she can make a necklace. She asks her opinion on what a decent price would be for them. She takes the beads in her hands and says that they will look. She analyzes, considering their size, she would say that 10 silver coins per bead would be quite accurate. Aura begins to think. She determined the value of the glass ball to be 500 times more than the bead, since she is so honest in her assessment. It means that she has no ulterior motives in this regard. Aura says that she understands. It was very informative, in gratitude for her help. She asks to be allowed to offer 1 ball as compensation for the inconvenience. She dumps all the beads out of the bag and tells her to choose whichever one she wants, and she looks at him with admiration and clutches her face in surprise. Isabella is in no hurry. Aura says there is no need to hold back. She doesn't mind if she looks at each one before deciding. She laughs and says that it is really difficult to choose one. She looks at them carefully with a grin, and Aura looks determinedly. She says that then she will take advantage of her generosity and choose one, which she picks up and shows. As for the rest of the jewels, Aura asks for no more words, depending on her husband's wishes. If he wants to part with a couple more, she will be the first to know about it. Isabella bows and says that she is very grateful for this. Here she remembers and says, where are her manners? She completely lost track of time while talking. She asks if she can examine her sick husband as payment for the pearls. Aura replies that, of course, they are asking for mercy. She doubts that there is anyone on the entire continent who would refuse a visit from a member of the papal family. She says that she will take her to the inner palace when they are done with the preparations. Until then, she asks not to be shy and rest in the next room. Then she asks to let her go. Here Zenjiro slowly opens his eyes and hears a female voice, which says that his fever has almost subsided. She believes that at this rate he will get back on his feet in a couple of days. He realizes that it is not Aura, then whose voice is it? She sees Isabella in front of her, who is examining him. He looks at her questioningly and waits for an explanation. She straightens up abruptly and bows before him. She bows her head and says it is a pleasure to meet him. Her name is Isabella. She is the third child of Benedict I, the 18th couple of the dual kingdom of Shiroa and Jill Bell. Zenjiro stands up abruptly and thanks her for such a formal greeting. She asks him not to be shy and to lie back down. She says that she is very grateful for his courtesy, but his body has not yet fully recovered, so it is better for him not to overexert himself. He straightens up, sits with his back straight, and says that he feels much better, which surprises him greatly. She says that these are all the effects of the stamina recovery and fatigue relief spells that she used on him. She could also use a panacea, but since he doesn't have a blessing, it's better to let him overcome it himself. He awkwardly answers her that it is clear to him and that he understood her. He looks around and sees Aura walk into the room. She smiles at him, and he smiles back with a sigh. Zenjiro thanks Her Highness Isabella. Thanks to her, he is already much better. She objects and says that she did not do that much. She adds that if he continues to rest, she thinks he will be able to get out of bed tomorrow. He obeys and begins to cough. Here, Aura quickly prepares a hot medicine, asks for forgiveness, brings it to her mouth, and tells her to drink it more slowly. Isabella watches their interaction in surprise. Aura asks with concern if he is feeling better. He lies back down with a smile and says that he is feeling much better. Isabella covers her mouth in embarrassment and says that she has heard rumors, but from what she can see, they are indeed quite close. Zenjiro asks for forgiveness, and Aura smiles and says that it is better this way than the other way around. Isabella says that if you think about it, Zenjiro had to leave his own world to come here and marry Her Majesty Aura. She asks if this is an example of love knowing no bounds. If so, then she would have to think it was wonderful and quite romantic. Zenjiro believes so. Everyone should know that the bloodline magic of the Capua Kingdom is space-time magic. He muses that when a random guy like him suddenly ends up next to Aura, the last member of the royal line, he's sure they must have a rough idea why he's here. He says that his ancestors fled from this world to his 150 years ago because of love, and now he is their descendant and has returned here for the sake of marriage. If you think about it like that, it is quite touching. Aura is surprised by such a statement. Isabella looks at her in surprise. She says that it is clear to her, so something similar happened 150 years ago. Aura interrupts and says that these are just rumors. While it is true that a direct descendant of the royal family disappeared from records that long ago, there is no evidence that he went to another world or that Zenjiro is his descendant at all. Isabella says that this is true, and it is true. She apologizes for getting carried away talking about romantic love stories and speaking carelessly. She says that it is not encouraged to engage the sick in long conversations from the start, even if they are already recovering. So she tells Zenjiro that she is deviating. Aura says that she understands, so be it. She asks to be allowed to express her gratitude for using her valuable power for her husband. Zenjiro thanks her very much. Thanks to her, he feels much better. He rises a little. Isabella says that it is a mere trifle. She did exactly what any member of the papal family would have done. She bows and says that she will go and get ready for the journey. She asks him to take good care of his health in the future. Deep in the night, Aura sits on the throne, and the servants in front of her say that they have found out who hired Princess Isabella. It was the former king of Cobraga, Luis II. Aura says that it's strange if it was the former king. It would be one thing if it was the current king who sent for her, but she doesn't think the former king or even the country as a whole could afford to hire someone like Princess Isabella. The man with the mustache says that this is indeed the case. However, men are forbidden to enter the inner palace. Aura says she doesn't understand what the inner palace has to do with this. The patient was the former King Cobraga. Then she comes to a realization. She suddenly stands up and screams that this cannot be. He believes that everything is as she suspects. Aura tensely says that Princess Isabella's goal from the very beginning was to visit the inner palace of the Kingdom of Capua. As they suspect, it appears that the Kingdom of Cobrag has requested Prince Robert's visit, but the truth is that the dual kingdom has decided to send Princess Isabella instead of Prince Robert for the same price. Aura lowers her eyes and sadly says that it is clear to her that although his appearance was unexpected, Zenjiro is still the consort of the Queen of Capua. He may remain in the shadows, but other countries may not think so. They most likely see him as another addition to those who wish to seize power in the kingdom, whether he is ambitious or humble. If it was to confirm what kind of person Zenjiro is, then that is more than a good reason for it. She goes and says that they have completely deceived her. She decides that for now, they will consider the case closed. Aura continues talking about the old man. She asks, hasn't he already heard about it? He answers that in fact she is talking about these stones. Aura shows the stone and replies that it is true, she is talking about glass balls. Fabio says 50 gold coins. He thinks that price for them would be a bit extravagant. Aura turns to Fabio and asks him to be more honest in his words. She asks if he really thinks that the word slightly is appropriate here. Fabio asks him to forgive him and allows him to rephrase. Such a price far exceeded their expectations. Moreover, the behavior of Her Highness Princess Isabella was stupefying. Everyone talks about her as a good person. She was also one of the survivors of the palace. If she felt that someone wanted something, then she would definitely take advantage of it. They could at least expect her to have such skills. Aura says that Princess Isabella is not one to enjoy fancy things and is not known for spending big, so her estimate of 50 gold might be accurate. Fabio says that perhaps she also expects possible competition. If someone else finds out about the precious stones, they can offer a higher price than Her Highness Isabella, in which case her behavior is quite understandable to him. Aura wonders if Isabella's gaze was immediately drawn to the clear, colorless ball that time. If it wasn't just a coincidence or an attempt to distract her, perhaps it had something to do with its color or transparency. However, in that case, the crystal should be a good replacement for it. This is not good. Aura feels that she has too little information. The old man says that she certainly shouldn't take it at face value, but how much does he know about that storm ridge staff of the Gupta kingdom? Aura doesn't understand and asks about this. Does he mean the magic item that held back an army of 50,000 men for half a year at the very beginning of the last war? The one that was mentioned in the story of the miracle of the Barong Pass? He nods. The Guptas were caught in a vice between two neighboring countries and were already on the verge of complete destruction. One of the borders of the kingdom was successfully protected by the staff of the Storm Ridge, and they managed to repel the enemies on the other border with their own forces. Aura says that the Gupta kingdom's lineage magic is lightning, and with the help of the Sharoa royal family's enchantment magic, they were able to create a powerful magic item, asking how this is all connected. They answer that the problem is in the time to make such a staff. In the midst of fierce battles, people from Gupta were sent to the Dual Kingdom to make a staff, but there was too little time to make a staff. Fabio says that they are right. If you take into account the time it took to travel there and back, they could only stay in the Dual Kingdom for 10 days. So how could they create such a powerful magic item in such a short time? Aura says they couldn't. Simple magical items take less than a month to create. Even the barrier carpet she lent to her husband took 2 years to make. In that case, it is unknown how many years it took to create this Storm Ridge staff. Officially, they began secretly working on the creation of the staff long before the invasion of other countries. Rumors say that this is not true at all. Rumors say that the royal family took advantage of the technology that allowed the staff to be created on time. Aura says with a smile, "So, this is a secret technique. No matter how much time passes, there will always be rumors about the secret techniques of bloodline magic. There is even a rumor that her space-time magic can turn back time and resurrect the dead. It's all such nonsense, in her opinion. However, there is one part of the rumors that he cannot laugh at. After all, as long as the target of the spell is an object that does not contain magic, such as a mollusk or a cockroach, then he can actually turn back time and revive them. One such rumor states that the Shiroa royal family can greatly reduce the enchantment time by using their life force, as evidenced by the fact that immediately after completing the staff, one of the royal family members fell ill. Aura looks at the ball and says that it is unbelievable. Even though the Gupta kingdom is important to the Dual Kingdom, she cannot imagine that they would sacrifice a member of the royal family to protect it, especially knowing the temperament of that same family. The old man says it was just a coincidence, but the problem lies in the rumor that enchantment magic takes much less time and effort when the prepared object meets certain requirements. Aura sighs and asks what exactly the Storm Ridge staff looked like then. He replies that he heard that the staff is made from a straight piece of wood and is decorated with a large, clear crystal ball at its tip. Aura ponders about the secret technique of enchantment magic. If it is true, then it would explain the incomprehensible price she offered for the marbles. She walks and thinks out loud that just when she thought she was done showing off Zenjiro to the entire kingdom, now she will have to introduce him to other kingdoms as well. She goes to him and asks for forgiveness. Perhaps now she will have to drag him into even more trouble than before. She leans down quietly and kisses him. Aura is beside herself with anger. Zenjiro thinks that Aura hasn't been this angry in a long time. He asks her to calm down, and she sweetly calls him hubby, but says that she can't. He still tries to calm her down. She gives in. Deep down, he knew that she wasn't really angry. Aura agrees and suggests calmly going through the information she received, and he asks whether, in essence, to create glass, he will need to reach temperatures higher than those necessary for melting iron. Moreover, as Aura says, she will also need a brick oven to achieve it, while how she can even make these very bricks, he replies that he has no idea at all. She angrily shouts that if he doesn't know this, then they won't achieve anything by this, he awkwardly says. Even though she says so, he really doesn't know. He suggests that they calm down and watch until the end. Maybe they'll learn something new? Aura growls with anger. Health is the greatest wealth one can possess. Although he had heard something similar many times before, but never before had he agreed with these statements as much as he did this week. Zenjiro was able to fully recover, even though it was all thanks to Her Highness Isabella's magic. He was finally able to be alone with the Aura after recovering. Hearing about what happened while he was bedridden turned out to be much more valuable than he expected. He had, of course, expected that things here might be of greater value than in his world, but he had never imagined that selling one glass ball would be enough to buy a noble estate. Then she easily said that since glass is so expensive, why not make it ourselves? But, as expected, making glass is beyond the capabilities of a beginner. However, out of the many TV shows he had recorded, there was one about an attempt to create glass, so he suggested watching it together, but it only ended up making Aura more excited. He just wanted them to relax and watch something together. He didn't say anything about it being a tutorial on how to make glass. Aura screams in horror that some letters started moving below. Is it possible that this is some kind of hint? Zenjiro awkwardly says that it's just some kind of sign that the show is coming to an end. He asks what she thinks, if she liked it. She stands up even more abruptly and shouts that her dream is to create her own glass balls. He says that it's not every day that he sees her so mad. It seems that she can get angry sometimes too. She chews and says that since he said so, she believes that it is so. Then she swallows the food and speaks in a good tone, saying that she allows herself too much. He tells her to wait and asks if she has been eating too much lately, and she looks at him questioningly. He's glad she liked the potato chip-style banana chips that the maids worked so hard to make for him, but they're a lot greasier than they look, so he doesn't want her to get sick from overeating them. Aura says, since he mentioned, she wonders if she really has eaten too much. She doesn't really like food with a lot of flavor, but for some reason she can't bring herself to stop right now. Zenjiro says that she's overthinking it. It's just that after eating so many of them, she's come to like them now, so that's all. They'll leave the rest for tomorrow. He closes it and takes it away. She says that now that she thinks about it, her body has started acting strange. It feels like the smell of fish has become even more repulsive, and she hasn't noticed how she ate a larger portion than usual. He asks if she might have caught something. Aura leans back and says that everything is fine, but to be sure, she is going to let Dr. Michelle look at her tomorrow. He turns off the TV and says that then they will go to bed early tonight. She agrees. Aura ponders that, however, these changes in her body, it feels like she's heard about them before. She suspects something. A little later, a male healer comes to her. She takes off her clothes, and he examines her. Having heard the results, Aura smiles. Zenjiro screams in shock, wondering if she is pregnant. She says with a smile that it is not certain yet. It is just the slightest possibility, however. From now on, she will act as if she is with a child. She calls him affectionately by name and says that she knows she will cause him a lot of inconvenience, but she would like to ask him for help in this matter. He happily shouts, squeezing her hands, that of course, if something is needed, he will help in any way he can. T awkwardly says that it would be great. She honestly admits that she herself does not know what exactly she should do, so it turns out that she cannot simply tell him to do this or that. He says that it is right. There's a silence. Aura says she's grateful to him, but there's no point in worrying about it. He laughs and says she's right. There's no point in worrying about it. He was just thinking about how amazing it was. Before coming here, he rarely even thought about the idea of getting married. The very thought of having children seemed so far away for him. How could he say it? It all just didn't seem real to him. She places her hands on top of his and says that maybe that's how he feels, but she feels the same way too, and she's sure there are still many more difficulties ahead that they haven't faced before. She adds that, however, the fact that he is nearby gives her confidence. He thanks her and says that if she is pregnant, then it would be better for them to start sleeping separately from now on. Even though the bed is big, he cannot be called quiet. Aura says that's true. Dr. Michel mentioned the possible risks of sharing a bed. He says he guessed. Since they have no choice, they will have to start sleeping in different rooms. Tomorrow, he will ask for another bed to be added to the sleeping quarters and will sleep there. She asks him if this suits him, because if he sleeps with her in the same room, it means that he will not be able to call another woman. He says that this is true. Under normal circumstances, it is not strange to have more than one wife. Aura says that if it becomes known that she is carrying a child, then the eminent nobles will definitely try to offer him girls. Zenjiro says that he is not the type of person to look at other women in a situation like this. Until she gives birth safely, he doesn't think he can think about anything other than them with her. Aura says that, however, the reality is that the nobles will definitely make their next move, in which case, even if he refuses, there will be those who will pressure him even more with their offers of concubines. Zenjiro asks, she already told him that he could be a little more selfish. If he said that he didn't like it, would she accept that as his selfishness? Aure is surprised he would go so far just to say that. She asks if he really dislikes it that much. He replies that he does, so much so that he doesn't need a concubine. Aurel blushes, and then stands up saying that she didn't think he would be so benevolent. He replies that it is not so, he is not a benefactor at all, it is just his selfish request. Aura says in that case, although it is unusual, she will accept his selfishness. However, she is the queen. If she judges that such selfishness will put the kingdom at a disadvantage, there is a possibility that she will have to break her promise. He replies that he knows this, and understands that, as a member of the royal family, there are duties that he must fulfill. If his refusal is enough to cause inconvenience, then he will do everything possible to make people accept his decision. Aura says that she understands, and then asks for forgiveness. She suggests that they end things today. He awkwardly asks her to be more careful, asks her to make sure that her stomach doesn't get cold. Aura says Dr. Michel said pretty much the same thing. Don't drink, don't take long baths, watch your sleep. If after following all the restrictions it turns out she's not pregnant, she might get depressed. Zenjiro says that this is all just very important for her and the baby. He wishes her sweet dreams. They hug for a long time and part. She leaves, and Zenjiro stands awkwardly and says that he will be a father. Aura reaches her chambers and abruptly punches the wall. She herself did not notice how she began to take Zenjiro for granted. She unconsciously began to think that he understood her position and would agree with all the requests that she demanded of him. Not even a year has passed, and she has already begun to consider him the kind of husband who never makes any selfish requests. She tensely closes her eyes. She thinks that this is not good, even though it was unexpected, but it is still a selfish request made by her husband. If possible, she would like to fulfill it for him. If he gives up the concubine at such a time, is this really a selfish request? If people misunderstand and believe that she is the one who is denying her husband's desire to have concubines, wouldn't that cause harm? She comes in, Fabio meets her and asks how it all went. She sits down and says that it's dark here, asks to light a couple more candles. He listens. She says that they first discussed the possibility of her pregnancy, as well as the problem of him taking a concubine, but her husband made an unexpected selfish request. Fabio says that it is clear to him, since he refuses to take concubines as it may seem, he is quite deeply in love with her. Aura says that right now, however, she is thinking about her overly easy acceptance of his sympathetic nature. Fabio honestly admits that he has not become more trusting of his understanding nature. However, who would have thought that he would be so deeply in love with her that he would regard concubines as a nuisance? Aura sternly asks Fabio what he means by this. He sighs and says that it's nothing. He just thought that to each his own. He didn't mean anything like that. Aura looks at him with displeasure. She says that if he really meant something bad, she would not tolerate it. It was extremely rude of him. He asks if she considers herself the ideal of everything a man would not want from a woman. She evades the answer. Aura says that in any case, she now understands that her husband's sense of values is extremely different from those accepted in their world. She cannot disagree with this. But the situation is such that no one will consider his refusal of a concubine as selfishness. People will say that she is so jealous that she forbade him from approaching other women, and that will only be the beginning. Aura says she knows this. Fabio says that if she thinks she should fulfill his selfish request, then it would likely require Zenjiro to actively tarnish his reputation. Aura understands what that means. From then on, whenever he showed up at a banquet or something like that, he would have to constantly talk about how much he loved Aura, let him explain to others that he couldn't even look at other women. That's what Fabio meant. Aura says that this way, her reputation will be protected at the cost of his reputation, and yet, in the end, it will just cause her husband more inconvenience. Fabio says that it can't be helped. Rumors of her pregnancy have already begun to circulate around the palace, and he believes that it is only a matter of time before nobles begin asking for an audience with her. Aura wonders if the news has already spread that far. Fabio tells that the royal knight Natalio Maldonado asked for an audience with Zenjiro. She says that she has not heard of such a thing unless it is for some important matter, then she cannot allow him to meet her husband. He says that Natalio wanted to personally express his gratitude for the dragon bow and also to swear his loyalty to him once again. Aura understands that he is talking about the one who caused the noise at the banquet. She asks if this is the knight who is jealously loyal to the royal family. She doubts that his loyalty is as strong as General Projorus. Fabio says that his loyalty is not as excessive as that of a general, and even though he comes from a poor family, he believes that there are no problems with him. There is a silence as Aura looks at him for a long moment and says that it sounds like he has more to say. He says that the knight Natalio has a younger sister who has reached the age of marriage. Her name is Kate. There are no problems with her character, but the stumbling block will be that she works on the inner palace. He heard that Zenjiro was quite friendly with the servants of the inner palace, so there was no doubt that the younger sister would pass on her brother's gratitude for the dragon bow to him. He just hoped that they didn't get too close because of this. Aura says that this is how the general wants to establish contact with the royal family through Natalio and his sister. The general's goals are still obvious. She is now interested in what will happen next. 1 month later, Aura's pregnancy was confirmed. This fateful event spurred a movement both within and outside the kingdom. Zenjiro, who had been leading a peaceful and lazy life, would certainly be drawn into the thick of things. Zenjiro sits among many books and says in a panic that this is not good. He can't find anything useful. He was so busy thinking about what to do when she gave birth that he didn't think about his pregnancy plans at all. He screwed up. He thinks he must have been thinking unconsciously that he would only have to deal with raising children and leave everything else, including childbirth, to someone else. Aura should also be surrounded by the greatest doctors in the kingdom, so there's probably nothing to worry about, but is there anything he could do? He thinks about Fabio. Doesn't he spend more time with his wife than he does? Fabio is a slender man who works as Queen Aura's secretary. He is always calm and collected. His gaze is always focused. His help is very important to Aura. Aura tells Fabio that it's a bit hard to think about, and she learned to hold back her urge to vomit on the battlefield. Fabio believes this means that temporary stress nausea and morning sickness are different things. She asks what the next matter on the agenda is. He tells her that the ambassador has delivered a letter from the dual kingdom of Shiroa and Jilbel. Aura assumes that it is about her request to Princess Isabella to turn the rings given to her into magical items. She thinks that she should read it in person. She takes the letter and sees the crest of the Sharo royal family on the letter. She opens the letter and is shocked by the contents. Fabio also twitches in shock and asks her. She gives a command with her palm that everything is fine, nothing serious. Fabio asks if he can inquire about the contents of the letter. She says it's mostly as she expected, a notice that her request to turn the rings into magical items was approved. She adds that the problem lies in the rumor included in the letter, supposedly under the pretext of idle chatter. This rumor speaks of a princess born into the royal family of Shiroa. Moreover, references to this princess were erased from official records approximately 150 years ago. Of all the things possible, this is about a princess, a direct descendant of the Shiroa family, falling in love with a man she should never have. The object of her attention was a member of the royal family with a kingdom that was at war at the time. Although their union was forbidden, it seemed that love had blossomed between them, eventually leading them on a journey. It's clear, in essence, this letter hints that Zenjiro inherited the blood of the Capua royal family, as well as the Shiroa royal family. She says that at least it appears that the sender of this letter thinks so. Being a member of the royal family means having a unique lineage of magic. As such, cases of marriage between members of different royal families almost never occur. After all, while members of the royal family are valuable resources, depending on the circumstances, they may also be called upon to fight in times of war. When the blood of one kingdom mixes with the blood of another, an unprecedented crisis is sure to break out. She says that this letter therefore brought both good news and bad news. Fabio asks if the letter really tells the truth. He wonders what the likelihood is that they took advantage of one of their myths and sent them a hoax in order to cause unrest in their kingdom. Aura replies, if that were the case, then the letter arrived too late. A month has already passed since then. Most likely, the sender has carefully researched this information in advance. He replies that it is clear to him. Then, is it possible for them to declare ignorance? Aura says that there is no way. Her husband confessed that he is a descendant of a member of the royal family of Capua, that he escaped to another world to Her Highness Isabella when she came to check on his well-being. Fabio calmly says that it was careless of him. Aura replies that nothing can be done. At that moment, no one could have imagined that this information would have such a big impact as it does now. Fabio asks if that is the case. Then what the royal family of Shiroa truly fears is the power hidden in Zenjiro's blood, as well as the existence of their child. Aura says that it is, however, their child will not be a problem since she has a close blood relation with the Capua royal family. Then most likely their child will inherit space-time magic. However, if her husband takes concubines and has a child with them, then there is a possibility that the child will show the ability to use charm magic, and that is a problem. Fabio says that for their most guarded secret, their bloodline magic, to fall into the hands of another kingdom, he can understand why the royal family of Shiroa would feel threatened. Once they lose their monopoly on magical items, it would not be an exaggeration to say that their income could suffer a major blow if they made the slightest mistake in this matter. Aura says this could be the catalyst that leads to the start of the next Great War. A little later after the conversation, Zenjiro drops a glass of water in shock. Aura apologizes, saying that he knows that this is all quite unexpected. Zenjiro asks thoughtfully, so the chances that everything she said will be true are quite high. She answers that it is. This is a matter of such extreme importance that it could shake the very foundations of the dual kingdom of Shiroa and Jilbel. She says that his background may be a little problematic. Given the situation in their country, his departure would be an even bigger problem, so there is no need to worry. However, he is undoubtedly a nuisance to the royal family of Shiroa, so much so that they have to thoroughly convince them not to start a war to destroy him. Moreover, this matter requires secrecy. In other words, he can't tell the truth when he refuses the concubine. She asks if he understands what she is leading to. Zenjiro says that he needs to be given another reason, excluding the truth, to give up the concubine. He starts to blush and then says with a laugh, so that's what she meant. Aura hides her gaze and blushes too. Aura apologizes and says that at this critical moment, his feelings are the only thing she can use to convince others. After all, it would mean that his image would practically be thrown into the dirt. Zenjiro calmly says that it's for the best. If that's all, then he can handle it. All of it is true, after all. She calls him by name affectionately. He says that since they're talking about it, he actually has one more request. He has been thinking about leaving the inner palace more often and taking a more active part in everything. He asks if she is okay with that. Aura asks why. He replies that in the last month it was clear that she had a lot of things to deal with, which is why he thought that he could help her with decisions. Aura thoughtfully says that it is true. These morning sicknesses made her feel a little ill. She did not expect it at all. However, when it comes to the matter, everyone else will not sit idly by. If he began to be more active outside the inner palace, he would have to worry not only about the ambitious nobles who had sworn allegiance to her, but also about the fact that they would be watching his every move with even greater skepticism. Zenjiro says that he has prepared himself for this, and of course he will refrain from doing anything that could get her into trouble, so he leaves the decision to her. Aura says that is very good. She places her hand on his hand and says that she leaves it to him. Aura remembers and says that he will have to meet with the knight Natalio outside the inner palace to accept his oath of allegiance. Her faithful assistant Fabio will accompany him to this event. She reminds him that this does not mean that he will replace her, but it will be good practice for him, she is sure of it. Later, they announce at the meeting that the oath of allegiance of the knight Natalio Maldonado will begin. Zenjiro asks him to come closer. He does so and holds out his sword. He performs the ritual. Then he turns to him and declares him his personal knight. He shouts that he understood him and swears that he will follow his every word, never turn from the righteous path, and dedicate his entire life to serving him and protecting him. The ritual ends. Zenjiro exhales. Fabio thanks him for the work he has done. Zenjiro says it's not that big of a deal. asking if he did everything right. Fabio says that from now on, Natalie will serve both as a member of the dragon-riding Archer Knights and as his subordinate. The salary of the royal attendant is 20 large silver coins per year. This will definitely become an important asset for the Maldonado family. Her Majesty Aura will pay this money. However, for appearances, he will be responsible for issuing it. Zenjiro asks if he is getting a raise. Fabio replies that he is, after all, a knight's loyalty can be bought. Zenjiro looks disappointed. Fabio says that, of course, it goes without saying that money can't solve everything, but without it, people's loyalty can't really grow stronger. Zenjiro answers with an awkward smile that it's clear to him. Fabio sighs and says that it reminds him. He asks if he has any plans to gain a title or estate. If he plans to take on more subordinates, then gaining his own funds will be important. Zenjiro asks Fabio what he means, and he explains that their kingdom of Capua owns lands that are not only here, but also scattered throughout the continent and are under the personal control of the royal family. Currently, Her Majesty Aura has placed governors over these lands and manages them. However, since he is a member of the royal family, he also has the right to appropriate them for himself. If, from now on, there is a need to increase his activity outside the palace, he will need to have a title as well as capital, which will be at his disposal. This is especially true when he wants more subordinates, such as Natalio. Zenjiro muses. If he thinks about how his influence in the royal palace will increase, his words make sense, but even so, there's something fishy about it. He thinks about Fabio, that he is the queen's secretary. The fact that these words come from him makes everything even stranger. Even if it is a small portion of the total income she receives from the lands she has united, if she gives him a portion, she will have less money to use. As Prince Consort, if he had his own lands and income, he could use them to raise an army. It could not be that such a trusted advisor as he would suggest something like that. He begins to wonder if Fabio doesn't trust him, and even if he does, it's too obvious to him. Fabio asks him what his thoughts are on the matter. He doesn't think it's a bad suggestion. If anything, Zenjiro would say he's giving him a warning. Then now is not the time to give him a vague answer. You need to stay calm and answer. He adjusts his collar and prepares to answer. He clearly answers that it will be necessary. The consolidation of their forces and finances for the sake of restoring the royal family is extremely important. Fabio asks if he didn't leave the inner palace in order to be useful to Her Majesty Aura. He apologizes for having to say this, but even if he was recognized as a direct descendant of the royal family, wouldn't it be hard for him to do anything without a title? Zenjiro tenses up as he hears these words. He says in a raised voice that even if that is the case, it is something he must personally discuss with Her Highness. He has no right to discuss it with him without her knowledge. Silence falls. Zenjiro begins to wonder if he has gone too far. Then Fabio smiles and replies that it will be as he wishes, asks for forgiveness for his rudeness and bows. A little later, Fabio comes to Aura and says that he is back. Aura says he did a good job. Alejandro says he did a good job too, so he can go. Alejandro hands Fabio today's documents. He replies that he understands him and will now continue to look through them. Alejandro bows and leaves, closing the door behind him. Fabio asks Aura how he is coping. Aura says that unlike him, he is quite nice, so she was not uncomfortable. However, it cannot be said that he grasps everything on the fly yet. Fabio says he understands. He will make sure he is more strict in his instructions from now on. Aura asks him how it went. He says that it's pretty good. As far as his facial expressions and behavior go, it seems that Zenjiro is quite skilled in controlling them and doesn't require further training. His manners are acceptable. In his current state, he believes that he won't make any mistakes. There is silence. Fabio looks around and says that after this, he tried to tempt him with the offer of lands and a title in his own royal domain, but he rejected it. Aura sighs tiredly and says that Fabio is provoking her again. However, since he brought it up ahead of time, it is possible that they should consider the prospect of this in the future. He then asks that this matter be discussed carefully between them, since it looks like it is not a matter that a lowly secretary like him can get involved in, and which he can discuss without Her Majesty's knowledge, quoting Zenjiro's words. Aura smiles and says that this is quite similar to the words of her sensible husband. He says, if he is not mistaken, today was the day when she was supposed to meet with the ambassador of the Dual Kingdom. How did she cope with all this? Aura says that so far it seems like they don't intend to put any restrictions on their child, but it feels like they will intervene if her husband has a child with someone like her. Fabio asks if a promise to the dual kingdom that he will not take concubines will be enough to quell their fears. Aura replies that she doubts it. In fact, they even hinted at her husband marrying a princess from one of their side families, on the condition that their child would go to the dual kingdom, of course. She can't say for sure, but it feels like they're more interested in getting their hands on space-time magic and not so much in monopolizing their charm magic. Fabio asks if this means they are trying to maintain a balance of power. She replies that they are. However, the fact is that they did not intentionally try to steal their bloodline magic, which is an even stronger argument that they are not obligated to entrust them with it. She doesn't even have any guarantees from the dual kingdom that they won't interfere with their child's life. Fabio says that with the way things are going, he wonders who has the upper hand in this debate. Aura would say they are equal. After all, bloodline magic is at stake. She believes that the positive side of all this is that they consider unleashing to be the most extreme measure. She says that it is possible that this problem will not be solved in this generation, in which case, since this is quite possible, he believes that she should be prepared for such an outcome. Aura says that indeed, however, the longer this issue remains unresolved, the less willing the parties will be to compromise. And while she would like to avoid her child becoming the catalyst for the next great war, it would be dangerous to jump to conclusions. She adds that although it is unlikely, it would be very problematic if the secret were to be revealed, and she asks if Fabio can only imagine what Pujora would do if he found out about it. Fabio says that he will no doubt become even more excited about the possibility of Zenjiro getting together with a concubine so that he can steal the enchantment magic. Aura says thoughtfully that they need to be careful, then adds that they actually need to be very careful. A couple of months later, Aura is already walking around with a big belly. She strokes her belly, and Zenjiro says that she has become noticeably bigger. Aura replies that this is true. Walking long distances has become somewhat difficult. However, she feels much better now that her morning sickness has stopped. Zenjiro quickly and panically tells her that she shouldn't overexert herself. Aura says with a smile that she knows. That's why he has to be her replacement today. She feels sorry to burden him with the responsibility of such an important ceremony, but she relies on him. Zenjiro winks and tells her that he'll be fine. More importantly, let her make sure she doesn't worry too much during the negotiations. Aura says honestly that all he does is worry about her. They approach the exit. Zenjiro leaves. Aura waves her hand at him and says that she is counting on him. Her gaze changes abruptly. Now it's time for her to go too. She mentally offers Zenjiro to fight together for their child and the kingdom of Capua on their own battlefields. Zenjiro sits on the throne in front of numerous men who silently look at him with satisfied looks. Zenjiro thinks, with his wife always sitting here, being the object of so many gazes as one would expect from a natural-born queen, he thinks she is amazing. But he must say that the queen's throne and the prince consort's throne, they look almost the same, but he believes that it is because they are the first queen and prince consort of this kingdom. The king's wife cannot be more important than the king, but even the queen, the supreme ruler, cannot interfere in the affairs of her husband. Aura is indeed in a difficult position. He tells himself he'd better concentrate. At least he's only here as a figurehead. Soon it'll be time for the manager to introduce him. He'll need to wave and say hello to everyone. The manager says that today, in the presence of His Gracious Majesty Zenjiro, who is present here as a representative of the royal family of Capua, all those gathered should give His Majesty on the throne a loud round of applause. Here he suddenly stands up and shouts to correct himself, saying that he is not here as a representative, but only as a deputy of Her Highness Aura, the sole and absolute ruler of the kingdom of Capua. Everyone looks at him in fear. The manager turns blue with fear and then asks for forgiveness. He asks to be allowed to correct himself and rereads the same thing with corrections. Zenjiro coughs and introduces himself as the husband of Her Majesty Aura, asking everyone present to remember that he is merely acting as her deputy. Everyone looks at each other tensely. Zenjiro feels sorry for going this far, but it doesn't count. Anyway, he can't help but feel guilty towards the announcer. However, he can't overlook such a mistake. If he says that he is her deputy, then the others will think that he is only here because he received Aura's permission. However, if he had not corrected him when he said that he was here as a representative, then at this very ceremony it would have been established that requests could be made directly to him, bypassing Aura. He thinks it's bad. They're starting to see him as royalty even sooner than he thought. Looks like he'll have to try a little harder during the banquet that's coming up after. Already during the banquet, given his position, people of lower status will not be able to approach him, so he believes that he will have to talk to someone himself. He approaches the mustachioed man and says that if he is not mistaken, he must be Count Bologna. He says that he has heard a lot about him from his dear wife. She says that he is a capable civil servant and an educated man, the personification of elegance. He chokes up and says that he is terribly flattered to receive such high praise from him. He feels so lucky that he approached him. He thanks him for attending today's ceremony. Zenjiro says that it is nothing. He visited her only because his beloved wife, Her Majesty Aura, ordered, as her loyal subject, although not as such, but as a husband, it is quite natural for him to fulfill such a duty. Bologna stands awkwardly and says that it is clear to him, however, wasn't there a time when he, too, wanted to stretch his legs from time to time? Zenjiro starts to loudly say that not at all, he doesn't want anything like that at all when he is separated from Aura. In the inner palace, he feels like a flame without a candle. Only being here, he can't help but want her even more. He says with red cheeks that he never thought he could be so devoted to someone, in dreams or in reality. His thoughts are occupied only with her and the child inside her. He is already pulling Bologna and shouting that because of this he can't work at all. What should he do now? He laughs in panic and says that it is clear to him. Zenjiro looks around and sees everyone looking at him. He is a love-struck man, a useless man in love, a lazy husband of Her Majesty the Queen. He can literally feel their cold gazes piercing him. He thinks to himself, what can he do? Because everything he said is true. He looks up and freezes. At this time, Aura tells the guest that, as they can see, she is expecting a child, so let them forgive her for her loose clothes. The man says he holds no grudge against her. He is truly honored to be granted an audience with her. He is the ambassador of the dual kingdom of Sharoa and Jilbel. His name is Moreno Militello. Aura tells the ambassador that she wishes to keep this matter a secret, so she suggests going straight to him and getting down to business. The Twin Kingdom has blessed the wedding with Zenjiro. She asks if she can assume that he is unwilling to take back his words. He replies that, of course not. His kingdom sincerely wishes to congratulate her on her marriage. These words are in no way a deception. They have no intention of taking back their blessings, which means they do not wish to interfere in the affairs of the child between Zenjiro and Aura. She believes that this can be considered a success in this matter. The ambassador says that since Zenjiro is of royal blood, another kingdom has no right to interfere with how he behaves. They fully understand that. However, he adds that they also wanted her to understand the state of their kingdom. Aura nods and says that they can't help but understand what he means. Her husband also understands the situation and told her that he will not have a child with another woman. Isn't that more than enough, considering that he said that they will not interfere? It's their business. The ambassador looks away and says he is glad to hear it, but royal marriages tend to get out of hand. For example, he says that if Zenjiro takes a concubine and this child shows talent for charm magic, what will she say then? Aura thinks that since they only have the heir of their bloodline of magic in the kingdom, not taking a concubine would be quite unrealistic. To think that he would be so harsh on such matters without hesitation. At least this man has no shortage of determination, but she has her own reasons and arguments. She replies that what he is talking about is nothing more than a hypothetical situation, and in their current circumstances, she sees no need to answer him. He says that, however, she will agree that there will be nothing strange if something like this happens. He believes that it will be much wiser to avoid something that could lead to disagreements in the future. Aura says it makes sense. In that case, she asks what will happen if the Shiroa family decides to take back their words about not interfering in the life of their child. She speaks of a collateral branch of the family that might act unwisely if rumors about her husband get out. The ambassador tenses up and remains silent. Aura smiles and says that this is nothing more than a hypothetical situation, but it wouldn't be strange if something like this happened. What he said makes sense, enough to even consider the possibility. She adds that again, what she told him now also makes sense. The ambassador replies that he understands. He will return to the kingdom immediately for further consultation. Aura sighs and thinks the fifth meeting has come to an end. Even though she tries to keep this matter confidential, it takes too much time. The birth of this child is not that far away. She needs to find a way to end all this as soon as possible. 1 month later, Aura dictates that the dual kingdom will pay a fine of 3,000 gold. She asks Zenjiro if he wrote it down, and that's it. Zenjiro says that's great, he has everything ready, but to make sure he hasn't made any mistakes, he will read it all out loud to her. She agrees and waits. He reads out that Zenjiro Kapua will not have children with anyone other than Aura from now on. The dual kingdom will never interfere in the affairs of a direct descendant. Should the Kapua kingdom violate the first point, that is, Zenjiro has a child with someone other than Aura, the dual kingdom has the right to test the child for his talent for bloodline magic. If the element of charm magic is confirmed, the child will be educated abroad in the two unified kingdoms for 3 years, starting at the age of 15. Should the dual kingdom be forced to flee during the training period, the Kalpa kingdom has the right to send the child home early. After 3 years of training abroad, it is worth wishing to immigrate to the dual kingdom. He says that's all. Aura says that it really doesn't look like there will be any problems with that. What does he think? She thinks that she was rather scrupulous if she is allowed to say such a thing. Zenjiro thinks she's right. Based on the 18 or so articles he's seen, he can tell she's put a lot of thought into this. It's a bit of a strange feeling that it's all based on the condition that he still takes a concubine. Aura asks him, what is it if something is wrong? He says it with suspicion that it might be too vague. Aura doesn't understand and asks what he means. He replies that in his opinion there is something special about it. He has reviewed and amended contracts in his world in the past, and when he looks at these clauses of the contract, he just feels like there are too many holes in them. He may be thinking too much, he thinks, but it would be a good idea to write it all down in such a way that no awkward explanations would come back to them in the future. Aura asks if he could elaborate. He accepts to explain what will happen if points 2 and 3 contradict each other. Aura starts thinking. In simple terms, what will happen in the future if their descendant marries the descendant of the child he had with a concubine from a collateral family? Their child would be considered his direct descendant. So based on point 2, the dual kingdom would not be able to interfere in his affairs. However, this child would be a breach of the treaty, so the dual kingdom would have the right to interfere based on point 3. Aura begins to understand, Zenjiro says, since it's rather vague, wouldn't the matter be open to debate? Aura says that he made a really good argument. However, this contract will be offered tomorrow and will end her meetings with the ambassador. It will be quite difficult to make changes if they start it now. Zenjiro apologizes and says that he shouldn't have stuck his nose into politics, but he couldn't help but be curious. He just thought that they could at least include a few things that would be beneficial to them. Aura says that he doesn't need to worry about it, for better or worse, it will settle the bloodline issue for the time being. The next day, the three of them are sitting at the table with the ambassador. The ambassador is extremely happy to meet Zenjiro. He introduces himself and says that he is extremely flattered by the opportunity to meet him in person. Zenjiro also introduces himself to him. Aura says that now that her husband has finished his introduction, she suggests they get down to business. She asks him which question he would like to begin with, the official one or the real one. The ambassador says very well. He asks then to let him start with a simpler, official matter. Zenjiro is surprised at what he sees. The ambassador shows and says that the rings they ordered have been completed. Zenjiro thinks that they are magical items. Thanks to his training with Octavia, even he can see the light of magic inside them. This is the first time he sees magic in rings, and so many of them. He tells that Her Majesty Aura's ring was enchanted with ignition magic, while Zenjiro's ring was enchanted with a water spring. He adds that the enchantment of the ring of ignition was made by Prince Francesco, and the ring of the water spring was made by Princess Margarita. Aura says that both of their highnesses' work on their rings is quite an honor. She will prepare a letter of thanks when they are done with their current business. She asks if she can ask him to deliver it to them. The ambassador says he will do as she wishes. He will do everything possible to make sure it reaches them. The ambassador assumes a serious expression and suggests that they now get down to the real matter, since they have so little time. Zenjiro tenses up. The ambassador hands over the document and says that this contract will be an official document. He asks to look at it and sign it if the conditions are met. Aura says that her husband still has difficulty reading from writing, so could he please read it all out loud? He asks to be excused and begins to read the conditions. Zenjiro will not have children with anyone other than Aura from now on. The dual kingdom will never interfere with the affairs of a direct descendant. Should the Kapua kingdom violate the first point, meaning Zenjiro has a child with someone other than Aura, the dual kingdom has the right to test him for his talent in bloodline magic. Zenjiro thinks that everything is going well so far, but he can't stop worrying about the contradiction between the second and third points. Here, the ambassador reads that the dual kingdom is obliged to pay a fine of 3,000 gold. Here, he tenses up and remains silent. The two are waiting. The ambassador says that there is an addition. In case of a contradiction between points 2 and 3 in the future, point 2 will take precedence, that's all. Zenjiro is surprised by this and looks at Aura with warmth, and she already looks at him the same way. Although it wasn't much time before the contract was to be signed, it was possible that she had added this extra paragraph earlier in the morning. He thinks he's not a match for his wife. Aura signs the document. Thinking about it logically, it would be normal to prioritize point 2 over point 3, however. If Zenjiro had not voiced his concerns about clarifying this matter, then it would have left room for debate and could have become a possible weakness. One day, when there was a shift in the balance of power between Capua and the dual kingdoms, the likelihood that they would use point 3 against them would be quite high. Aura is confident that it can be said that Zenjiro's proposal prevented the possibility of a future attack, which is an amazing achievement. However, this is a secret contract. His achievement will never be known to the general public, which is why she will make sure to remember it. It is his achievement. That evening, over tea, Zenjiro asks if it is possible to say that everything has been resolved for now. She replies that it is, and that as long as he does not take a concubine, the dual kingdom will not have a single reason to complain. Zenjiro says that, in that case, he knows what she wants to say, but it's just empty fantasy. Aura says that under normal circumstances, he might think that he has nothing to worry about in the future once they have 3 or 4 children, but as he knows, the royal family of this country only consists of him and her. But the Sharo family has 23 people in the family. Zenjiro happily suggests that she try, and she angrily asks if he really wants her dead. She asks honestly how many children he suggests she bear while she rules the kingdom. T laughs. After a silence, he asks her to extend her left hand to him, and she says with a smile that her fingers are a little swollen now, so could he put it on her little finger for now? He puts the ring on her finger. Aura asks her to wait and asks if he is going to tell her anything. She hoped he was going to tell her again. Zenjiro awkwardly says that it's something she usually only says once in her entire life, and she says how sad it is to think that she'll never hear those words again. He panics and says that he'll say it. He says that he promises to love and honor her, to be her support and help, for richer and for poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do them part. He makes an oath on this ring. He puts the ring on her little finger, and she admires it. She asks Zenjiro to stand up. He obeys and stands up. She puts on the ring and says that she promises to love and honor him, to be his support and help, in richer and in poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do them part. He makes an oath on this ring. He blushes deeply and looks at his Aura, who smiles warmly. That night, she was unable to repeat the words of that oath. Of course, she intended for her relationship with Zenjiro to be loving. However, in the grand scheme of things, such a move was only made for the good of the kingdom. As a queen, she is not allowed to love a man until death do them part. Once Zenjiro became a threat to the kingdom, she was ready to renounce him, but that is no longer possible. She will never be able to get rid of this man now. The summer he was in his 2nd year of high school, his parents were in an accident. He heard it on the phone. At the hospital, everyone consoled him, hugged him, and soon the funeral took place. He learned that death was always near. Even though they were such decent citizens, they died so simply. That's when he decided for himself that he wanted to live an ordinary life. He won't cause any trouble for anyone. If his goals aren't too high, then even if he fails, it won't matter so much. That's the life he wanted for himself, because he knew he would die one day. It's not that he hates life. He enjoys spending time with friends and is happy when he gets to celebrate with colleagues when they achieve something. It's just that when all was said and done, he had no dream or goal to strive for. Even if he worked hours that violated labor laws, once he got used to them, he led a pretty tolerable life. He just went with the flow and was happy with it. His life didn't need meaning. This was his life. Aura's labor begins. As she continues to scream, Prince Consort Zenjiro looks around in panic and begins to run towards her room. The servants don't let him near them. They say that the skills of the royal court physician Michelle are undeniable, so there is nothing to worry about. Prince Consort Zenjiro looks long and hard at the maid, who asks for forgiveness and says that it would be better if he sat down and rested. He sits down on the chair and thinks that he was wrong. This heat must be putting a lot of pressure on Aura while she is in labor. He must install an air conditioner in the bedroom before their next child is born, and, more importantly, he must master space-time magic first. If he could use magic that allowed him to teleport, then in the worst-case scenario, he could bring a member of the Jilbel family who could use healing magic here, but right now he was only busy with the ability to see magic. Another one comes to them, immediately asks for forgiveness, and says that she brought more hot water, then she gives them the towels. Prince Consort Zenjiro at this time thinks that there is nothing he can do, just like that time. He is irritated by the fact that he can't do anything, and feels like his chest will burst from fear and anxiety. Perhaps everything will end up like that time completely. He sighs, shakes his head, and wonders what he's thinking. Some water is brought to him. He thanks her and says he can leave her here. He trips over the table and falls down, spilling water. She asks for forgiveness in a panic. All the maids stared at her as she carefully wiped everything. Prince Consort Zenjiro approaches her and tells her that it is okay, there is no need to worry about such things. She smiles and says that she understands and thanks him for his mercy. He turns to the others and says that more importantly, he wants to make sure they don't overexert themselves. They can get water from the fridge and use towels. He suggests that they all give Aura and the baby a warm welcome. They all listen and say that they understand him. That's right, he's not the only one worried about Aura. He's not a child anymore, he's going to be a father. He concentrates and thinks that he just has to believe in Aura. That's all he can do now. After a long time, a child's cry is heard and everyone suddenly jerks. Prince Consort Zenjiro slowly stands up and looks at the door. The doctor comes out and says that he has come to report that Her Majesty Aura has given birth to the first prince without complications. Prince Consort Zenjiro immediately smiles. The maids also discuss among themselves. Aura and the baby are fine, Her Majesty may be tired, but their lives are not in danger. The doctor asks him if he wants to see. Prince Consort Zenjiro replies that he does, of course. He enters the room, and he sees Aura in sweat. He hurriedly approaches her and says that there is no need to force yourself to get up. She barely manages to say that she is fine. She asks to see their baby is also healthy. The maid holds a small baby. Prince Consort Zenjiro stands in shock when talking about this child. Aura says that this is not her child, but their child. Prince Consort Zenjiro approaches the child. The maid asks him to look. As he can see, he is quite a strong boy. He wonders if his eyes are similar to his. If so, however, if she had to choose, she would say that his mouth is just like Prince Consort Zenjiro's. He sees the child and thinks what an amazing magical power he has. Is it possible that he has more than Aura? To think that such a tiny body could have so much magical power, he wonders if he really is his child. He wants to touch it with his index finger, but the child suddenly stops him, grabbing his finger. Prince Consort Zenjiro gets scared and shouts that he got him, and the maid laughs and asks if he's not cute. Prince Consort Zenjiro says with tears in his eyes that he is the sweetest creature he has ever seen. He asks if he can hold it too. The maid says that of course he can, but she asks him to be careful. He can't hold his head up on his own yet. Prince Consort Zenjiro approaches Aura with a child. Aura tells the maid that she wants to sit down, so let her lend a helping hand. The doctor says he doesn't think raising her upper body for a short time will cause any problems. The maids put pillows on the back and quietly lift it. Prince Consort Zenjiro happily tells her that everything is over, indeed, for the foreseeable future, of course. Aura says that while she originally intended to get pregnant simply out of her sense of duty as a queen, now that she can touch her child, all those external reasons are farther from her than ever. She strokes the baby and says that she just truly loves her child, saying that since he is of royal blood, she understands from the depths of her heart why he should be raised by a nanny and grow up among adopted brothers and sisters. Prince Consort Zenjiro says that he is also not so sure that he can be loving but strict. Aura asks what they will call him. He wonders if she was not going to give him a name. Aura says that it is true that he will also give him a name. However, there is a tradition here that when parents are from different countries, then they give the children names that represent the countries they come from. Prince Consort Zenjiro says that he understands, then he will also think about the name, but she should rest a little. The Dr. Michelle also said that she should not sit for too long. Aura agrees, but asks if it's okay if it's just for a little while longer. Everyone makes concessions and says that only if it's just for a little while. Aura says that she knows. They admire their child. Prince Consort Zenjiro internally thanks Aura, thanks his aunt and uncle, even someone like him could become a father. He thanks his mom and dad. He was able to face a new life, and he can clearly see that his life has meaning. In order to protect his child and support his beloved wife, he firmly decided that he will live. No matter what obstacles he has to face, he will definitely overcome them because he is no longer alone. On that day, the long-awaited first prince of Capua was born. Everyone is chatting. Just think that the first prince was born. It feels like only good things are happening lately. One says they won the war. Aura got married and a year later an heir was born. Doesn't that sound too good to be true? The other says they've been fighting for so long that it's only natural that good things are happening now. Another says that the capital will soon hold a festival to celebrate the birth of the first prince. He would like to go. Another asks not to worry and promises that they will celebrate everything in their own way. While they are planning a feast and fun and riding in a carriage, the monsters and dragons hide behind a bush and absorb information. The royal capital of Capua. Although a month has passed since the birth of the prince, the capital is filled with bright torches, and laughter is heard from all sides. There is nothing surprising in this. After all, most of the inhabitants of Capua were waiting for this news. It is not surprising that they wanted to celebrate the day when the royal family had their first son. The city turned into a sleepless one, and now everyone is having fun until dawn. Prince Consort Zenjiro plays with the child, making various funny faces, while the child only gives him an uncomprehending look. Then the child smiles a little. Prince Consort Zenjiro happily says that he is smiling, so he is interested. He continues to make faces, and Aura looks at him awkwardly. She tells him that she understands that he is trying to make Carlos laugh, but she asks him not to make the weird face too often. As his wife, it makes him feel a little uneasy. Prince Consort Zenjiro blushes and stops doing so. Aura adds that their son's name isn't just Carlos. She asks to call him by another name, and only he can pronounce his name correctly. Zenjiro says she's right. He calls his son Zenkichi and asks to look at him. This is the first prince of the kingdom of Capua. His name is Carlos Zenkichi Capua. Prince Consort Zenjiro remembers and asks Aura if it's not time for the morning council already and if she'll be late. She says that they were going to discuss the matter with Marquis Gazelle today, but he hasn't arrived yet, so the meeting has been postponed until he arrives. Prince Consort Zenjiro awkwardly says that it's good. She replies that it's not really good. She has some free time now, so it would be unwise to just waste it senselessly. Here, Carlos starts to cry. Prince Consort Zenjiro is frightened and asks why he is doing this. What happened? She says that everything is fine and that he is just hungry. Aura asks Prince Consort Zenjiro if he could help her untie the knot in her dress. T agrees. She thanks him and begins to feed the child, saying that she will hardly be able to find time today to feed him with her milk. Parents watch their child drink milk. The child moves away happily, showing that he has already eaten his fill. Aura, with red cheeks, says that the rest will go to Daddy, who, in a panic, shouts that Daddy does not drink her milk, so he should stop joking in front of Zenkichi. The meeting began. At the meeting, Aura asks if the salt was not delivered. She demands an explanation from Marquis Gadgil. He stands up and replies that, of course, he will tell. He says that his son, to whom he entrusted his territory, sent a message the day before yesterday saying that even 7 days after the supposed arrival, the salt had not arrived. He also said that they only had enough supplies for 3 months because his son, as the representative of Margrave, was asking permission to send their army to check the crowd and find out the reason for the delay. He also wants to add that his opinion coincides with his son's. There is silence, Aura thinks. Aura says that the salt trail is the safest route to bring salt into all of Capua's territories, as is well known, but they can't turn a blind eye to this situation. Then someone stands up and clearly says that they object. He says that this is certainly a serious incident, and he has nothing against sending soldiers to explore the salt trail, but the knights, not personal soldiers, should take responsibility. Margrave adds that what General Pujor says is true. The safety of the salt trail is under the jurisdiction of the royal army. However, based on previous years' experience, they can assume that there is a good chance that the cause is the increase in the number of carnivorous dragons along the trail. Everyone whispers and looks at each other tensely. The general goes on to say that, in this case, it is necessary to send soldiers into the forest and meadow around the road to ensure that the dragons who attacked the people are destroyed. As they most likely know, the hills and mountains near the paths are his territory. The men's gazes meet. Tension reigns. Aura looks at them and thinks that this is problematic. It is not surprising that the Lord is against his land being trampled by the royal knights, and there is nothing new in Pujol's desire to mobilize an army to add to his list of achievements. By the way, Margrave Gadgil seemed to have lost two of his sons in a last war. Both the eldest son, the heir, and the middle one, famous for his valor, passed away, as far as Aura knows. So there is no doubt that the person currently watching over his territory is his only surviving third son. Aura understands what he hopes for. That is, losing to the dragons is almost impossible. He wants to show his son as someone who can succeed by taking advantage of this not particularly dangerous incident. Aura coughs and tells Margrave that it is then decided. She accepts his offer. General Pujol turns around in displeasure. Aura says that she leaves it in their hands. If they can solve this problem, then she promises to reward them appropriately. However, only if the reason for the delay is the carnivorous dinosaurs. Otherwise, she asks that the reason be reported to the palace immediately. He says that he understood her. His son will certainly be able to learn a lot in the capital. He thanks her for her care. Aura lets everyone go. Later, Aura asks Fabio to prepare the parchment. The salt problem is critical for their kingdom, considering the situation. She will personally send the documents using magic, let him give it to the general so that he can choose a subordinate to accompany him. Fabio says he will do as she wishes. However, he asks if everything is really okay. Aura looks at him with displeasure and irritation and asks what he means. He replies that he means her previous decision. It seems to him that this was accepted as a fair decision, even with the refusal of Margrave and the mobilization of the royal troops. Aura says that, however, if they do this, Pujol will stir and end up one step closer to his goal of becoming a field marshal, which she cannot accept with open arms. He says that this is indeed the case, but on the other hand, it will also give their knights a good opportunity to solve the problem on the border. If they solve it skillfully, it will allow their knights to remain in Margrave's territory. Aura ponders and comes to the conclusion that he is right about this. She was considering replacing the Margrave border guard network with royal knights. Aura asks to forget about it. They won't be able to strengthen their army by sending fighters to the borders. Besides, all this will take a lot of time. Even if they start right now, she can't afford for the kingdom to be unprotected for so long. Fabio says that a great opportunity could slip through her fingers if she keeps chasing rainbows. Aura says that she doesn't mind, because a live dog is much better than a dead lion. Playing politicians was never a good idea. After a moment of silence, Fabio asks if it wouldn't be wiser to leave someone on standby so that they could help in case Margrave's son fails. Aura asks if this is really necessary. Besides, if Margrave fails, then Pujol will take action. Fabio asks, then how about this? If leaving the royal knights under Pujol's command will only bring him more glory, then it will be better if the knights follow Her Majesty. Aura thoughtfully says that he is right about that too. She understands and asks that the order for long-term border control be issued before Pujol makes his move, leaving the choice of personnel to the general. Fabio bows and says that he will do as she wishes. Then he will prepare the province for the round trip to the salt trail. Aura gets up and says that she is counting on him. It seems that pregnancy has affected her body in a bad way. She is going to stretch in the evening, as she planned. Fabio asks her not to push herself too hard. Aura says she knows. And besides, it's just a bit of work with her dear husband. In the evening, they fight each other with sticks. Aura shouts at Prince Consort Zenjiro to watch the movements on the left and attacks. He barely defends himself. She warns and shouts that now tomorrow, once again on the right, he still defends himself. And Aura shouts that he should not forget about his legs. She hits him in the legs. He doesn't have time to react and falls. Aura screams that he will simply fall if he does not move. She warns of a blow to the head. He manages to pick up his sticks and defend himself. He's barely breathing. Sweat is pouring off him. He's shaking all over. Aura looks at him sternly at first, then smiles. And then he says, "That's enough for today." Prince Consort Zenjiro falls over, relaxed, and cries out that it's finally over. She hands him a bottle of water and asks if he wants it. He takes it, drinks it, and thanks her. He stands up, and they sit by the fountain. Prince Consort Zenjiro says he feels like he's coming back to life. Aura asks how his first sparring session was. He replies that he knew it would be hard, but to be that bad, he was completely at her disposal. Aura says that only a monstrously talented being would have a chance to defeat an expert in hand-to-hand combat anyway. But he wasn't that bad. Prince Consort Zenjiro thanks her with a laugh, but adds that he doesn't need to win. The main goal was to stay in shape. He has no desire to become a warrior or anything like that. Aura says that it is a wise decision. Prince Consort Zenjiro says that for now, he will support her as best he can. Aura says that it is a great help, but she only asks that she not exhaust herself. Prince Consort Zenjiro says that it will be fine. As her husband, he can't help much publicly, but he is looking for a job that he can do with his knowledge from that world. Aura thinks about it and says that now that he says it, the glass production project will start soon. Prince Consort Zenjiro asks in surprise if that is true. Aura says that this is true. The budget allocated for this is not that big, so there are only a few workers, but they are all former blacksmiths and apprentices, so they are used to the heat. Prince Consort Zenjiro says he understands. Finding someone active is impossible. Aura says that's true. Blacksmiths are the treasures of the kingdom. Forget about the old dismissals, and even finding apprentices was very difficult. Prince Consort Zenjiro thinks that she is right. After all, active blacksmiths are irreplaceable specialists. Of course, no one will allow such important people to work on this project, no matter how good the forecasts are. Of course, it is possible to hire more people for something other than the project, for example, dragging materials or making tools. For convenience, a water wheel will be required. Prince Consort Zenjiro is surprised and says that it is true. Does this kingdom really have water wheels? Aura says that it is. Capua has many rivers, so farms often use them. However, in essence, this technology is from the northern continent. Compared to them, theirs do not work as long. Perhaps their engines are simply not as powerful. Prince Consort Zenjiro ponders this and then says that it is because her wheels do not have the same number of teeth. Aura doesn't understand and asks what this means. Then a maid comes up to them and tells Aura that it's time for her to return to the palace. She gets up and says that she's right. Aura suggests that they continue this conversation later. Prince Consort Zenjiro responds that, of course, he thanks Aura for her presence today. But he honestly hopes and says that she will hold back next time. Her attacks were so heavy that he thought her weapon would fly out of his hands. Aura twitches and then asks with displeasure if they were really that heavy. He replies that they were unrealistically strong. Prince Consort Zenjiro reveals that one of her attacks was so strong that he could have flown away because of it, or that he felt pressure on his shoulders. Aura hits him hard on the head. He screams in pain. Why did she do that? She says not to worry. Next time she will use more force, so let him get ready. A few days later, they are riding their animals into Margrave territory. Usagi turns to Xavier and says that he knows it's early, but maybe they should take a break. There seems to be a perfect spot nearby for that. Xavier replies that he knows their soldiers must remain mobile. It seems their plan was to move on before noon. Lord Joseph replies that he knows this, but today it is hotter than they predicted, and it will be dangerous to strain the soldiers so much. A little later, Xavier wipes the sweat off himself and says that he understands, thanking Lord Joseph for the advice. Xavier shouts to all units that they will rest on the plain ahead. It is not that far, so let them hold on. Margrave Gadgil's third son, Xavier Gadgil, and this will be his first mission. The military, along with Xavier, arrive at the scene of the incident. They look on in horror, some even groan in disgust. He says that here, it seems, are the traitors they were looking for, but even for them this is too much. Someone starts to gag, someone tells him not to puke. Another asks Mr. Xavier to give orders already. Xavier twitches and shouts at all investigators to carefully examine the bodies, establish the cause of the incident and report to him, and orders everyone else to disperse and guard the area. The secretary shouts to everyone, have they heard? Let the first squad guard the road to the west, and the second to the east. The third and fourth squads must guard the cargo troops from behind. Someone shouts asking for the road. The investigators go. Xavier stands for a long time and then sighs heavily, thinking that he is so useless. Not only did he not think about the soldiers' fatigue until Lord Joseph said so, but he also allowed himself to be confused for a moment. He tells himself to pull himself together. What would his fallen brothers think? If he keeps acting stupid like this, then what kind of Gajeel will he be? They turn to him and say that one of the investigators has come with a report. Xavier orders to let him through. The speaker explains that, after examining the remains of the destroyed cart, the bodies of the draft dragons and the merchant, they believe that the poor fellows were attacked by Legion dragons. Xavier flinches when he hears this information. The Legion dragon is a predator infamous throughout the western part of the southern continent. At full height, adults are about the same size as other dragon breeds, a head or two taller than the average human. They are upright dragons with strong, springy legs for charging, killing prey with fangs and razor-sharp claws on their forepaws. As the name suggests, dragons of this species almost never hunt alone. On the contrary, they overwhelm with numbers, hunt in packs, attacking both people and livestock, often destroying villages in remote areas. Xavier thinks about the Legion dragons and asks the speaker if he is sure. He says he is sure, so there is no doubt about it. The remains of the traders were too decomposed for further inspection, but fortunately, the thick hides of draft dragons do not rot so easily, so they were able to recognize the marks of the teeth and claws of the Legion dragons on them. Xavier says that it is clear to him, then there is no doubt about it, but shouldn't the salt merchants have taken quite a lot of strong guards with them on the journey? So how could they lose to a common flock of Legion dragons? The speaker tells him that a strong enough leader can gather around him more individuals than they can even imagine. There are records of cases where packs with a large leader numbered from 20 to 30 legionary dragons, and if you take into account that the leaders of large packs are usually quite smart and cunning. Xavier says it's clear to him, it looks like they fought about that many dragons. He thinks that even skilled guards wouldn't save them from that many Legion dragons. The speaker tells Xavier he's wrong. 20 or 30 legionary dragons is the minimum. The speaker fears that there are more than 50 of them in the flock they are about to fight. Xavier asks in horror, is it really that much? Are they laughing? Why did they decide that? The speaker says to look at the corpses of draft dragons that pulled the carts of salt merchants. Not all of them, but some of them have their backs gnawed. The fact is that the meat of the back is quite tough. Predatory dragons usually do not eat it. As Xavier sees it, even though there were plenty of people and draft dragons here, some of the dragons had their backs gnawed off. This means that the flock was so large that even all these people with draft dragons were not enough to satisfy them. This is the conclusion of the speaker. Xavier begins to think and get nervous. They move on and take a break by the fire. The fire is burning, Xavier is sitting, and behind him are numerous soldiers. 50 Legion dragons. Even if they don't fail miserably, they will lose quite a lot of people. One way or another, there are only two ways left, Xavier thinks about. Either he prioritizes his own achievements at the cost of the death of valuable soldiers, or he saves the lives of soldiers, giving up on military glory, and asks the royal guard for reinforcements. He knows that the lives of the soldiers who swore allegiance to the Gagel family are truly important. However, if he, the heir to the Gagel family, cannot gain recognition, it will reflect poorly on him in the future when the time comes to rule the territory. He ponders whether he should choose his own merits or saving the lives of soldiers. Xavier sees the speaker, who is thinking nervously and hard. Xavier asks him, "What is the matter?" He twitches, comes up and says with excitement that he has something to report to him. Xavier orders him to speak. The speaker says that there is some kind of bad smell from all of this. At first he thought that it was just an accident. How could the wheels and axles of 3 dragon carts break at the same time? Xavier suggests that they were probably damaged in the heat of battle, which is not uncommon. The reporter says they found precise bite and claw marks on each cart, as if they knew where they were hitting. He believes they can no longer dismiss it as a coincidence. Xavier asks if he really means that they cut off the trader's legs on purpose. Another says that it is quite possible they still haven't found a single dead Legion dragon in the area, which means that the merchant's guards weren't able to beat any of the attackers. Xavier asks Lord Joseph to stop joking. Even if their guards were weaker than their army, they should have killed at least one. However, the road here is quite narrow, while the forest on both sides of it is quite empty. If an organized flock of legionary dragons were to squeeze them into a vice in this area, Xavier asks him if he really means to say that they are that smart. Then someone runs and shouts that something has appeared in the sky to the northeast. It is a flying dragon. A light dragon flies in the sky. Everyone looks on in horror. Xavier asks why of all places a flying dragon appeared here. Lord Joseph calls for all units to form a platoon and form an anti-air formation, and for the archers to ready their arrows and await his signal. Everyone takes a defensive position. Archers prepare their weapons and shoot arrows upward. Others stand with spears. Xavier stands behind the shield and muses out loud that giant flying dragons should hunt in open clearings. But what is he doing above such a dense forest? They are watching him closely and say that his movements indicate that this is not his hunting grounds, and that he is probably just flying to the nearest clearing. The dragon flies past them and flies away. Everyone breathes a sigh of relief. One of the guards says that he gave him a real scare. Suddenly, legion dragons jump on them from behind. No one expected this. Everyone is hit and panicking. They started attacking the soldiers. Xavier wonders if they caught them off guard while they were distracted by the flying dragon above. Could their pack leader really be that smart that he took the appearance of a flying dragon into account when planning his hunt? He understands that he must do something and quickly, but he doesn't know what exactly. Xavier turns around in fear and hears him say that there is no need to rush. Let him not forget that he is accompanied by Margrave's mighty army. Even if he was ambushed, as long as they remember what they learned in training, they will remain alive. Xavier smiles and then gives the order to all troops to hold back the enemy. The shield-bearers should raise their shields towards the forest. Let the spearmen attack back from behind the defenders and let the archers shoot from the center of the formation. Arrows fly towards the dragons, they squeal and leave. Xavier shouts that they are retreating. He asks Lord Joseph how many of their men were wounded. He tells him that only one was mortally wounded. Also, 5 were wounded in the ambush. They won't be able to fight anymore, but they are not in any particular danger. Xavier says that the defensive formation seems to have changed. It seems that they are now at a dead end. Arrows fly towards the forest. Dragons run away. Xavier says that at this rate they will achieve nothing. It seems they have no choice but to enter the forest. Lord Joseph fears he cannot agree with him. They were not prepared to fight such an organized flock of legionary dragons. He says that breaking into their territory under the current conditions means saying goodbye to their lives. Xavier says that it is clear to him, but at this rate they will achieve nothing. Moreover, they may not have enough arrows. Lord Joseph says not to worry. They are not the only ones who are annoyed by this whole situation, because if the draw lasts longer, then one dragon comes out of the forest and attacks. He shoots an arrow straight into the dragon's face and he falls. Lord Joseph is sure that they will be the first to make a mistake. After all, they are only legion dragons. No matter how cunning their leader, their soldiers are just animals that follow their instincts. They will not be able to obey the command to stand for long. Xavier happily tells Joseph that it worked perfectly. He shouts that it is time to deal with the impatient dragons. He orders all the soldiers not to break formation, to continue to counterattack them one by one. Xavier sees the corpses of the legion dragons and thinks that this is good. Let them continue in the same spirit if they continue to fight them off. Then they hear a terrible roar and turn around in horror. In the middle of the dense village, a large dragon specimen can be seen glaring at them. Xavier looks on in complete horror and says in a trembling voice that it is huge. Here he does not finish speaking, as a roaring dragon flies towards them with an attack. However, at some point, the dragon leaves. Silence falls. The soldiers stand tensely in formation and wonder if they have retreated. A little later, they sit and bandage each other's wounds. Someone groans in pain. The doctor asks him to grit his teeth. Xavier says they will move out as soon as all the wounded are bandaged. He knows it is asking a lot, but they should hurry. This place is too dangerous. Everyone obeys him. Xavier asks thoughtfully, so even if they fixed the dragon carts and replenished supplies, they still couldn't solve the problem on their own. Lord Joseph replies regretfully that this is so. He believes that they would have suffered considerable losses if they had sent troops to pursue them. Xavier says he realizes the campaign has failed, so he orders an immediate request for reinforcements from the capital. Lord Joseph, after an awkward pause, says that it will be as he wishes. Then they propose to move out of the Salt Road. As soon as they are ready, they should report that they have failed and ask for reinforcements as soon as possible. At this time, in the royal capital of Kapilov, everyone is discussing. They hope that Count Zamard understands their situation. They sent an army along the Salt Road only to exterminate the predatory dragons, so let him convey this message to the kingdom of Navala. Count Zamard replies that he understands, however, if predatory dragons have indeed appeared, then the problem also concerns their territories bordering the kingdom of Oro. So he asks her if she would mind if they also send a message to their kingdom about the need to watch the northern border. Ora calmly replies, which of course they wouldn't mind, although she was willing to bet they'd rather keep an eye on their army than on predatory dragons. Moreno first asks to be allowed to express his joy that both countries were able to come to an agreement without unnecessary misunderstandings. The thoughtfulness of Queen Capua and the wisdom of Count Zamard had previously been highly commendable. Count Zamard thanks him and tells Moreno that he is flattered, even if it was an after-the-fact approval. The fact that Her Majesty appointed someone from the dual kingdom to be a witness clearly shows her consideration for the bordering kingdoms. Moreno remembers and tells Aura, "The commands in this kingdom are transmitted terribly slowly. Is it possible that Her Majesty actually used her magic?" Aura replies that it was a serious matter after all, so he had no choice but to send messengers with his magic. Moreno says that it is clear to him that since Her Majesty has indeed used her magic, then she does not want to turn her magic into a magic item for greater practicality. Aura looks askance and thinks that this is his proposal again. No matter how tempting it is, she is afraid that she will have to refuse. First of all, she had to stay in the dual kingdom for years in order to create this magical item. She smirks and asks if he's suggesting she leave the throne empty. He replies that of course not. Besides, it wouldn't be a problem. He says that to tell the truth, Prince Francesco and Princess Bona have shown interest in her after they saw the clear gem and the diamond ring, so if she doesn't mind, they hope that they both can visit the kingdom of Capua. Everyone is shocked by this statement. Prince Consort Zenjiro is bathing and thinking out loud. He doesn't quite understand, but is it really that unusual, he means, for the royal family of Shiroa to leave their kingdom? Aura says that it is true. Everyone knows that in the dual kingdom of Shiroa and Jilbel, foreign visits are usually made by the Jilbel papal family. It is a rare thing for them to personally visit another kingdom. Taking this into account, they most likely have another motive for visiting. I'm willing to bet that their current target is most likely his marbles. To be fair, after their meeting she received several letters from Princess Isabella hinting at their interest in purchasing the remaining stones. She had assumed so, but it seemed that these balls were indeed necessary for their charm magic. Prince Consort Zenjiro sighs when talking about the glasses. Then he leaves the negotiations about them to her anyway. He is curious about what these people from the royal family of Shiroa are like. He turns to Aura and asks if she knows anything about them. She replies that it's not like she said that the Shiroa royal family almost never leaves their kingdom. There's much less information about them than other royal families. All she knows is their lineage, their age, and what she believes to be some rather dubious rumors about them. Prince Consort Zenjiro asks about their age, and Aura says that she should tell him their age first. If he remembers correctly, Prince Francesco is 24 years old, while Princess Bona is 16. Prince Francesco is also a direct descendant and grandson of the current king. Moreover, he is the firstborn of the first crown prince, so he will almost certainly become the next king. Prince Consort Zenjiro asks in surprise if she means that he is the future king of the dual kingdom. Aura shakes his head and replies that it is not so. At least officially, he has no rights to the throne at the moment. Prince Consort Zenjiro wonders how this is possible. But this same prince is already 24 years old. Aura adds that it's quite strange when you think about it. She could understand if Prince Francesco couldn't wield any bloodline magic. But the problem is that he is one of the most talented among them, even among the royal family. So that option is out. So the only possible logical reason why he can't inherit the throne is most likely because of this prince's behavior. Prince Consort Zenjiro is shocked by this information and says that it lowers his expectations a bit. Aura says with a laugh that she completely agrees with him. Prince Consort Zenjiro asks what about the other one. She says that if she remembers correctly, Princess Bona is 25th or 26th in line to the throne. Although she has royal blood, she is not a direct descendant, so the princess does not have much influence. They do not see value in her. Prince Consort Zenjiro says that he understands. Roughly speaking, she is only called a princess. Aura says that's why she will be so troublesome. She asks, he understands what she means, right? Prince Consort Zenjiro laughs awkwardly and asks if she thinks they haven't given up on him yet. She replies that she doubts they will do anything stupid. But she is afraid that they might still try because they have nothing to lose anyway, so let him keep it in mind. Prince Consort Zenjiro replies that he understands her, but either way, it will probably turn out to be quite a problem. A little later at the table, Aura takes a sip of water, exhales, and says that, come to think of it, the soap and shampoo he brought is almost gone. Prince Consort Zenjiro says that, unfortunately, this is true. He tried to recreate the soap here using lye and some vegetable oils. Unfortunately, things didn't go so smoothly. Aura says that it's as she thought after all. Just like with glass, it will be quite difficult to recreate the technology of that world. To tell you the truth, they still have a lot of soap left. But the problem is that they use a lot more shampoo than he intended. and it's very difficult to make it on this side. Prince Consort Zenjiro thinks that he seriously underestimated the amount of shampoo that the long-haired woman would require. He thought he had brought too much with him, but at this rate he doubts it will last until next year. He suddenly lets go of the glass. It falls and breaks into pieces. Prince Consort Zenjiro panics and shouts that he ruined everything, while Aura looks at him with a serious expression. Prince Consort Zenjiro says that this is really bad after all. They were never able to recreate glass in this world. He thinks that nothing can be done, he will just ask the maids to clean up here later. Aura ponders and figures that she has no plans for today anyway. She gets up from the couch. Prince Consort Zenjiro is startled. He looks at her, and she says that it's a great time. As a member of the Capua royal family, he has the right to know about it. Now she will show him the secret magic of the Capua royal family. He will have the opportunity to learn it in the future, so he must make sure that under no circumstances will he ever let others know about the existence of this magic. Aura asks him if he can promise this. He replies that he promises. Aura asks to allow her to rewind the time of this object back one day, and in exchange, she gives the spirit of space and time 1,300 of her mana. Everything around is glowing and spinning near the glass. Prince Consort Zenjiro closes his eyes from the light, and when he opens it, he sees that the glass is now whole without a scratch. Prince Consort Zenjiro sits in shock and asks in a trembling voice if this was not simple repair magic, if he thinks correctly. She replies that it is. It was the secret magic of their royal family of Capua, reversing time. Besides, the repair magic is too different from their bloodline magic. Prince Consort Zenjiro is still sitting in shock, and Aura apologizes for disappointing him. But this magic is not as useful as he might imagine. Prince Consort Zenjiro asks what she means, and she explains that firstly, the purpose of this magic is limited to the fact that it does not contain any mana. Because of this, it is impossible to use this magic on most living organisms. Well, actually, it can be used on animals that do not have mana, like insects or small fish, for example. But she doubts that it will have any effect. She says that of course this magic also can't be used on magic items. In general, this magic can only be used on something that isn't a living being or a magic item. So there aren't many items that are worth the mana spent. Furthermore, the amount of mana needed for this magic depends on the size of the target and how far he wants to rewind their time. If they want to rewind it by a year or more, then there will be a need for compensation, which is borrowing some mana from themselves. Prince Consort Zenjiro approaches her abruptly. She asks, in other words, everything is fine as long as there is no mana in the object and it is not too big. Aura sheepishly replies that it is. Prince Consort Zenjiro yells that it's cool, then how about using it on this? He points to the equipment. She asks if she remembers correctly, because it's called an air conditioner. She says thoughtfully that it won't be as simple as reversing the glass's time earlier, suggesting that perhaps she could rewind its time back a day until she no longer has to use magic on that day. Prince Consort Zenjiro smiles and shouts that this is great. With this, he will finally be able to install this air conditioner. He thinks to himself that this is great. He no longer has to be afraid of failure and breaking it since he can redo it as many times as he wants. Just like he thought, magic really is amazing. A little later, Prince Consort Zenjiro is studying. He asks for a dome to appear from the tip of his finger to isolate him from his surroundings. And in exchange, he grants the spirit of space and time 359 of his mana. Then magic appears. Prince Consort Zenjiro says it's good, the girl praises it and says it's good work. She says that it seems like Aura can now use the space-isolating barrier without any difficulty. Prince Consort Zenjiro sheepishly says that this magic is more or less the easiest for him to use, as he can't control his mana output that well. The girl says that this is not true at all. In fact, Prince Consort Zenjiro is already able to control the output of his mana. She explains that the amount of mana released by people does not always have an exact value, and the amount of mana that Prince Consort Zenjiro used today was slightly more than what was needed to activate the space isolation barrier magic. Prince Consort Zenjiro does not understand and asks how he was able to activate it. She replies that he unconsciously manipulates his mana to reduce it to the required value. This time she suggests that how about he try again without taking his gaze away from the light of his mana. He recites the same spell and fire appears. He looks for a long time and realizes that this means he controlled his mana. The girl says that it's true. It's still a little more than necessary, but once he gets the hang of it, he'll be one step closer to becoming a mage. Prince Consort Zenjiro says that he understands, so he asks her to continue teaching him. She replies that she will do so with pleasure, and he hopes that he can continue to be useful even if she is not as talented. Perhaps seeing Aura casting her magic up close that day made him subconsciously understand the basics, or something like that. However, as long as he couldn't properly control his mana, his dream of being able to use teleportation magic wouldn't come true. He succeeds, but immediately gets cut. He nervously and irritably says that he will not lose. He will definitely master it this year, or at least he should get teleportation magic before his next child is born. He doesn't want to feel that helpless feeling again. He'll do anything, no matter the cost, as long as it's for Aura. At this time, Aura comes to the blacksmiths. The man bows and says that it is an honor for them to see her here today. Aura demands to report their results. She heard that they made a breakthrough. He replies that it is so. According to Aura's orders, after they made a mixture of white sand, crushed roasted shells, and thrown mineral powder, exposed them to great heat for as long as possible, they finally succeeded in melting it into a liquid state. He holds out the box and says that here's the final product, after they scraped it out with an iron rod and dumped it in the ashes to cool. Aura takes a piece of glass, examines it, and then smiles. He says that this is the limit of what they can do with the current iron furnace. He is afraid that this furnace will break down or worse, explode soon if they continue to use it like this. Aura says that she understands that it looks like they will actually have to build this brick thing for this. But in any case, with this they have finally been able to lay the foundations for glass production, so let them continue the good work and try to increase transparency now. The blacksmiths bow and obey her. Aura remembers and asks, what about the water wheels? The blacksmith asks her to come with him. They approach the structure. He says that 6 of the 10 water wheels they installed have broken down, and of the 6 that broke down, 5 were the same type as the ones they had been using until now, and the 6th was a new model. Aura says that it is clear to her and believes that all that survived were the new models. The blacksmith tells her that everything is correct. At this time, Aura examines the mechanism and the wheels themselves, thinking that her husband's knowledge simply cannot be underestimated. She remembers that he told her that mutually prime numbers are 2 numbers that have no common divisors between them except 1. Let's say, for example, 9 and 5 have no common divisors between them except 1. Therefore, they are mutually prime numbers. On the other hand, 10 and 5 have one more common factor, which is 5. That's why they are not mutually prime numbers. Aura thinks hard. She says there are a lot of words here that she hasn't heard before. She asks finally, what is he trying to tell her? Prince Consort Zenjiro replies, in short, she will see a huge difference in the endurance of the mechanisms depending on whether the wheel blades are mutually prime numbers or not. Then he awkwardly adds that although it was just something he read in a book, from soap, shampoo, conditioner, to Arabic numerals, glass, and even knowledge of wheel blades, there is a high probability that Prince Consort Zenjiro's knowledge will have an invaluable impact on this kingdom in the future. Moreover, his legacy also includes both types of magic, space-time and charm magic, and the day when Prince Francesco and Princess Bona will arrive is also getting closer. She hopes that this visit will not bring problems in the future. Someone comes up and apologizes to Aura. She asks him what is going on. He says that a courier flying dragon has just arrived from the southern border fortress. Xavier tells everything. The general takes out his sword and says that they came to him not to pass on the mission to exterminate the Legion dragons, but to ask for his help and be able to finish it with their own hands. The general wipes the blade of his sword. Xavier says that he misunderstood him. He knows his place. He understands that he failed his mission the very moment he asked for reinforcements from the Royal Knights. He says that what he is asking for is permission to accompany them in their army's extermination as volunteer soldiers. The general twitches. There is a fight on the salt path. Archers shoot arrows, hit dragons, they fall. Another dragon steps on them. Xavier says in surprise, this is the power of the dragon riding knights archers. The general then told him that he heard that the Legion dragon was getting bigger and smarter over time. If that was the case in this case, then there was a high chance that it would become a battle of endurance. He adds that if it does come to that, then their main concern is how long their salt reserves will last. Xavier says he is absolutely right. They could probably last for 6 months if they were divided and given out in parts, but he fears it will drive up prices, making citizens more anxious. The general says that's why he has a proposal. His original plan was to deliver the salt after they dealt with the Legion dragons, but now that their army will be going with them, they'll need to change the plan slightly. He needs Xavier's army to focus on guarding the salt cart. His plan is to take the salt route by force. He believes it would be best to deliver the salt to the border town first. Of course, if they encounter dragons along the way and aren't lucky enough to kill them all, then he'll also expect Xavier's troops to fight them on the front lines. He asks him if that's okay with him. As a result, on the field, he sees how the soldiers cope with the dragons perfectly. He doesn't understand how they manage to control their upright dragons so skillfully in the midst of all this noise. Xavier calls Lord Joseph and asks if he can control the dragon like they can. He replies that he can, it won't be a problem. To be honest, it was a bit disappointing that the dragon-riding archer knights known throughout the Western continent were only capable of this. But then again, perhaps he should actually praise them for this, since they had lost more than half of their men in the previous war. Xavier asks if he means that this isn't even half of what dragon-riding archer knights can achieve. He replies that it is true. If we talk about their standard during the previous war, his abilities would hardly allow him to compare with their average knight. But looking at their current standards, he is probably almost as good as their elite fighters. However, under the leadership of General Pujoru, he believes that it is only a matter of time before they regain their former glory. The dragons flee back into the forest. Xavier asks if they are retreating. General Pujoru comes up and says they will continue their journey as soon as they clear the road of corpses and regroup their formation. He asks him if that suits him. Xavier replies that it suits him, after all. This time they have no losses and his family's personal assistant has already prepared arrows and everything necessary in the nearest village. Pujoru says if he had prepared in advance for the unexpected and in case the fight dragged on, he thinks it was a wise decision. Xavier replies that he is very grateful. He asks if the giant that was mentioned has shown himself. Pujoru says that if that last roar was indeed his, then he probably became more cautious after seeing the size of their troops. Xavier agrees and says that more than likely, at this point, this clash has only made him even more vigilant. Pujoru says that it will be a problem, he agrees. There is silence. They all look into the forest. Pujoru says that for now they will wait and see. However, on the way back, they will move in separate small groups. But they must make sure that they do not go so far that they do not hear the sound of the horn. Xavier asks, in other words, they are being used as bait. T replies that not really, he is using the whole army as bait to be more precise. They are going to divide all the troops equally into small detachments to lure them out. Xavier asks to leave it to them. In the palace, Aura sits with a document and says that it is clear to her that Gajil's son failed his operation. She sighs. Fabio thinks he did a good job since he managed to get them information about the criminal who blocked the salt path. Aura says that's true. If, like the report, the enemy this time was 50 or more well-organized Legion dragons, then it would be a bit too much for 100 soldiers. Aura says there is no need to tell her that. The wounds their kingdom suffered during the last war have not yet healed. Even if it is just a border town, they still cannot afford to lose half of its soldiers even if they manage to destroy all the Legion dragons. With this in mind, Margrave Gagel's third son made a really good decision for his first campaign. Fabio says that the initiative to destroy the Legion dragons has now fallen into the hands of General Pujoru. Aura sighs and says that it is hard to imagine General Pujoru being defeated by ordinary Legion dragons. But the real problem here is the general himself. She fears that he will use this achievement as a crutch and aim for a higher position. On the other hand, perhaps they should be grateful for this opportunity, because it would keep him far from the capital when the prince and princess of the Dual Kingdom arrived. Troops are on the way. They say, praising God, that they are able to deliver the salt safe and sound, and that they have not been attacked by legionary dragons on the way. Joseph tells Xavier that he is right, but the same cannot be said about their way back. However, if they do attack them, the execution of the attack will be a measure of their abilities. Xavier asks what he means. Among all the divided squads, the army has the most soldiers, but they would still never be able to defeat the reinforcement squad, which is why if the general squad is attacked, they can conclude that the dragons judge the strength of the humans based on their numbers. However, if they attack their detachment instead, It means that not only their numbers, but also their equipment and the training of their soldiers, they are also able to include in their calculations. Xavier replies that it is clear to him. Then he suggests that they just hope that the dragon leader opposing them is not that smart. Then a whistling sound is heard from the bushes. Xavier immediately twitches and shouts to Lord Joseph that this is a signal. It looks like they have finally shown up. He shouts that General Pujoru's detachment may be in danger in this direction. Dragons emerge from the bushes and they shoot arrows. Pujoru shouts for all troops to form a circular formation. There may be many of them, but the horn has already sounded, so they should not force themselves to attack them and focus on their own defense for the time being. They continue to fight, killing dragons one after another. They help each other, but they are wary that there are too many of them. Someone is shouting that they better get ready or they won't survive. Pujoru believes that their worst fears have not come true. Now they know that they only look at their numbers and not their combat training before deciding to attack them. It wouldn't be a surprise if he decided to show up in a winning situation like this. Now he wonders where he might be. They continue to fight. Then one shouts to the General Pujoru. And he says that this is true. From above, this is also an option. He jumps on his dragon and swings his spear. He sees this dragon walking in the thick of the forest and throws a spear at him. It hits him right in the eye and causes a terrible roar. The general lands calmly. Everyone in shock asks if he is okay. He answers that he is fine. He just asks to be more careful in the future. The general says that in any case, he found their target. He was able to slightly wound him, but he doubts that it is enough to stop him. So they should prepare to face him. Everyone obeys him. Even if he is a little smart, in the end he is just a predatory dragon. For now, let him be blinded by anger and show himself. A dragon with a wound on its face screams and comes out of the forest, the sound of which makes the knights tense up. Pujoru says that their lady has come. They make eye contact with Pujoru and then decide to back off. Xavier's squad approaches them. Xavier asks where the Legion dragons are. Pujoru says that he was able to hurt the huge one he was talking about, but unfortunately it ran away. In any case, they will start chasing them right away. Xavier says he understands, then turns to his squad and gives the order that they too will help clear the road. There will be more manual work. Pudju tenses up and asks Xavier when they first encountered the Legion dragons, how many of them his soldiers were able to kill. Xavier thoughtfully replies that if he remembers correctly, it was 5 or 6 dragons. Pujoru asks suspiciously if they are absolutely certain that they were attacked by 50 dragons that time. He replies that they were. Judging by the testimony of his soldiers, there were around that number. Pujoru asks, then, what about that time they delivered salt to the border town? Xavier guesses that there were 50 dragons that time too. He sighs in realization. Pujoru says that in any case, his soldiers were able to defeat 14 that time, and the number of Legion dragons that attacked his army this time was also about 50. Xavier immediately assumes that this is possible then. Most likely the number of their enemies this time is not limited to only 50. The leader probably thought that the most suitable number for hunting is somewhere around 50, also among the dragons they killed. There were clearly no females or young individuals found. Xavier tensely asks how many of them the general thinks there are. He answers, who knows? There could be 300 of them or even more. And what worries him most is that in a situation where most dragons would have been consumed by anger and rushed forward, he was able to calmly make a decision and retreat, so that their enemy may be smarter and more cautious than they initially assumed. He may even decide not to show up here for a while. And if that's really the case, there may be a need to call for reinforcements and comb the forest. This battle could last much longer than they expected. At this time, young people are traveling on the road. A beautiful girl addresses the Prince Francesco, who is standing in a field and stretching his hands. Francesco asks this girl Bona why she is in such a hurry. Is she really so impatient to meet Prince Consort Zenjiro? She awkwardly replies that it is true that she is waiting for her. She apologizes. But did he really change into these clothes himself? Prince Francesco replies that, of course, she knows, after all, they don't have as many maids here as in the palace to help him change his clothes. So he thinks he will do everything himself. She tells Prince Francesco that he wears a different sock on each foot, pointing to his feet. In Kalpa, a meeting takes place in the throne room of the royal palace. Everyone looks and thinks that there were rumors, but they never thought that they would actually come. Another thinks, didn't the royal family of Shiroa sit in their kingdom for several centuries? Everyone knows they're officially here to strengthen friendship between the kingdoms. But he's willing to bet that's just an excuse. No one understands what they are trying to achieve with their charades. Prince Consort Zenjiro sits worriedly and Aura looks at the prince and princess with some indifference. She greets them and introduces herself, asking them to make themselves at home. Prince Francesco thanks her and asks to be allowed to introduce himself. He is Prince Francesco, Crown Prince of the royal family of Siroa, first son of Giuseppe. He bows and says that he is very grateful that she allowed them to come and stay in Capua. Aura twitches, and everyone in the room is also in shock. Aura doesn't understand what this all means, what he's up to. She looks at the people behind them and tries to figure out what's going on and what they want. Princess Bana also introduces herself, bows and says that it is a great honor for them to meet Aura. Aura realizes, as she thought, that this prince is not as simple as he seems at first glance. Later a feast is held, and Aura and Prince Consort Zenjiro sit together and drink a drink. Aura happily says that his liquor really did go down that easily. Prince Consort Zenjiro asks, because it's cool. At first when it overdid the alcohol, it wasn't anything special. But after he mixed it with fruit juice, it turned out to be a pretty good drink. Moreover, he doubts that the brotherly kingdom makes such a strong liquor, so at the very least, he can mention this fact to keep the conversation going. He hopes that she can actually enjoy it. Aura apologizes to Prince Consort Zenjiro. She will have to bother him again. Prince Consort Zenjiro asks if this is about Prince Francesco. She answers that it is, asks if he remembers what happened in the throne room. She says that he bowed his head to her. Such important people as the heir to the throne, the crown prince, should never bow to the ruler of another country. But the guards from the brotherly kingdom did not even bat an eyelid in response to this. In other words, they indirectly admitted that Prince Francesco would never become their king. Prince Consort Zenjiro asks if she means that this prince could cause trouble. Aura says that she can't say for sure, but it gives them a good opportunity to watch the princesses at today's party, and perhaps it will give them a clue as to why he really came. Prince Consort Zenjiro says that he understands this. Then he will try to dig up as much dirt as he can. Aura smiles and says that she appreciates his help. She stretches and says that it is time for them to go. She knows that the royal family is always supposed to be the last to appear, but she didn't think they'd have to wait this long. Prince Consort Zenjiro laughs and says that it was nice talking to her, though. They enter the hall together, announcing that Her Majesty Queen Aura and Prince Consort Zenjiro have arrived. They hold hands and walk forward. Everyone claps in admiration. It seems that Prince Consort Zenjiro is gradually getting used to such outings, but he must not let his guard down under any circumstances. After all, his opponents today are Prince Francesco and Princess Bana, mysterious royals from another country. Prince Francesco greets them. He asks first to allow him to express his gratitude for such a luxurious celebration arranged in honor of their arrival. Princess Bana raises her head and says that they are very grateful for their warm welcome. Aura says that is very good. Let them enjoy the feast. Prince Consort Zenjiro says that his wife is right. There is no greater joy for them than to see their guests happy with the reception they have received. Prince Francesco smiles broadly and says informally that they are all enjoying themselves very much. It is a little embarrassing to admit it, but this is his first time in another country. So much is new to him here, and it's best not to even start a conversation with him about liquors. Prince Consort Zenjiro looks at him and analyzes. If we judge him in a positive light, he is very sociable, but on the other hand he seems rather frivolous. Aura asks if the request to visit their kingdom was Prince Francesco and Princess Bona's initiative. He says that it is, as she probably knows. They rarely leave the kingdom, so they could not miss such a great chance. He laughs and says that one can say that God sent him to them. Princess Bana panics nearby and asks him to choose his words because he is in the presence of Her Majesty. Princess Bana tells Aura that they are very sorry, but His Majesty told the truth. He really looked forward to and wanted this trip. The same can be said about her. Prince Francesco says that this is true, and besides, one of the main goals is to meet Princess Zenjiro. He asks to be forgiven for his rudeness, but he can't help the strange feeling of kinship he feels towards His Majesty. Prince Consort Zenjiro laughs awkwardly and says what an honor it is. He and his wife are also glad to have the opportunity to communicate with them. Prince Consort Zenjiro wonders what other relationship there is. He wonders what he meant by this. What is hidden under the mask of his frivolity? A little later, Prince Francesco, without a clear mind, shouts what a joy it is to be alive, how he wants to express it in song. He starts singing in front of everyone and makes everyone ashamed of him. Prince Consort Zenjiro sees all this and thinks that it seems he has done something irreparable. He should have warned him about the strength of the drink so that he would not drink so much. Princess Bona says with a bow that she regrets it, but the prince did not mean it out of malice. Prince Consort Zenjiro says that everything is fine. She does not need to worry. Besides, his singing didn't seem to bother anyone. Here they heard sounds, turned and saw court musicians. He thinks and guesses that it's all the aura. Now his singing doesn't look strange because in fact the queen herself allowed him, as expected from aura. She saved the situation. Prince Consort Zenjiro tells Bona that Prince Francesco is indeed animated. He starts to say something, but Princess Bona notices the ring on his hand and becomes interested. Prince Consort Zenjiro replies that he approached the royal family of Shiroa to give him magical properties. And if he remembers correctly, it was Prince Francesco who took charge of it. Princess Bona confirms this and says that, after all, Prince Francesco was one of the best donors of the Shiroa family. To tell the truth, she also wanted to become a giver, but she simply did not have the ability to do so. She is quite good at crafting, but due to the difference in mana levels and giving magic, she cannot compete with Prince Francesco. Prince Consort Zenjiro narrowed his eyes. Indeed, Princess Bona had even less mana than him. It barely exceeded the minimum required for the royal family. In comparison, this guy's mana is simply off the charts. Prince Francesco continues to sing about his beautiful capital, his pearl among the sands. He thinks that he has 1.5 times more mana than Aura. Maybe he is not even at the level of Zenkichi. Princess Bona examines his ring. Prince Consort Zenjiro changes the subject and says that she mentioned she was good at crafting. Since they were talking about jewelry, he remembered that their kingdom was famous for them. Princess Bona replies that this is true, although she still has a lot to learn. But at least she is better at jewelry than magic. Once Lady Isabella showed it to her, but she asks directly because His Majesty brought this ring from his homeland. Prince Consort Zenjiro says that it is in his homeland. When a man proposes marriage to a woman, he usually gives her a matching ring. Princess Bona says that she understands. Just think, not 1 but 3 diamonds are cut so identically that you can hardly notice any differences. It turns out that it can be easily obtained in its homeland. Prince Consort Zenjiro explains that this is not entirely true after all. He had to turn out his pockets for him. Princess Bona suddenly approaches him. She asks if perhaps he knows how the metal brackets of the ring were made. There is nothing difficult about working gold, but it is the first time she has seen someone cut such fine patterns without leaving dents or damaging the ring in any way. She screams that this is nothing less than the pinnacle of craftsmanship. Every craftsman dreams of creating something like this. How can this be a common thing in his homeland? She can't believe it. It's enough to drive one crazy. She's all puff and pant, and says that if he knows anything about making this ring, she begs him to share his knowledge with her. Everyone in the room is awkwardly silent and looks at them. Princess Bona comes to her senses and realizes that she looked stupid. She says she's very sorry it was so awkward. Prince Consort Zenjiro says it's okay, she didn't embarrass him at all. He asks if she is really that interested in jewelry. He is sorry to disappoint her, but he knows absolutely nothing about the method of their production. Princess Bona asks if he really knows nothing at all. He replies that that is true. He was never particularly interested in it. Besides, she knows the proverb about the incompetent. Princess Bona shouts sharply that it is absolutely not important. She is sure that any bit of information would be useful. Prince Consort Zenjiro looks at her for a long time, surprised, and then says that he understands. Maybe another time if he has time. Princess Bona happily thanks him. At this time, Prince Francesco is having a blast and starts coughing, which makes everyone worry about him. Later, alone with Aura, Prince Consort Zenjiro stretches and says that it was so tiring and he only hoped that he would have time to visit Zenshiki after the party. T laughs and says that it can't be helped. He will wake up all the wet nurses if he shows up at such an hour. Aura tells Prince Consort Zenjiro that tomorrow is an early rise so they won't waste time. She asks him how he likes Prince Francesco and Princess Bona. Prince Consort Zenjiro asks for time to think. His first impression of Prince Francesco is that he is some kind of frivolous fool, perhaps so. Aura smiles and says that she understands what he is talking about. However, Prince Consort Zenjiro is very surprised that he is not malicious, as such people are usually not liked in the palace. He wants to say, how could he grow up so simple-minded in such a poisonous environment? Aura says that she heard that Prince Francesco's father and mother were well brought up. Maybe it's just because they raised him with love. Prince Consort Zenjiro says that she may be right, but that begs the question of why the royal family of Shiroa would entrust such an important task as visiting another kingdom for the first time in centuries to such a frivolous fool. Aura asks, then what if they don't think this visit is as important as they might think? That's also an option. Prince Consort Zenjiro doubts that this is the case. From the looks of it, Prince Francesco is one of the most skilled blasters in the Friendly Kingdom. It would be strange to send such a talent on a long journey without a reason. Aura agrees and says that he is absolutely right. In other words, if we assume that Prince Francesco is truly sincere with them, then those who sent him here, the influential people of the Shiroa family, must have ulterior motives. Either way, if the situation is left to its own devices, they may find themselves in danger. Aura asks, then what about Princess Bona? Prince Consort Zenjiro says that she is a serious and hard-working girl. Perhaps he means that she was so tense and strained that it was pitiful to watch. Aura says suspiciously that she was talking to him quite animatedly. He laughs and says that it is true. She got chatty when the hall was talking about his wedding ring. Aura understands and says that she could have guessed. The Shara family is famous for being the best creators of magical weapons. She heard that from childhood they teach their sons to create weapons, and their daughters, jewelry. Prince Consort Zenjiro says he understands. He doesn't think it was purely a work interest, more like a genuine passion. Prince Consort Zenjiro says with a smile that he promised to talk to her about the ring another time. Aura immediately tenses up and tells Prince Consort Zenjiro that he miscalculated. She asks him not to throw words around so carelessly in the future. He apologizes, even though she doesn't have such a high position. She is still a princess of another country. He just didn't have time to find the words. He spoke first and then thought. Well, they haven't even agreed on when they'll meet, so when the issue comes down to it, he can just pretend like nothing happened. Aura is thinking, it's not even about the promise itself. When everyone is tipsy, verbal promises mean nothing. The thing is, this is the first time her husband has said such a thing without thinking. She means that even Madame Octavia and Lady Fatima had a hard time breaking through Prince Consort Zenziro's defenses, and as Princess Bona managed to get a promise from him already during their first meeting. She thinks maybe they really are right for each other. She hopes that she just made it all up out of jealousy. She lets him go and says that they won't talk about it anymore. She asks him to just not do it again. Prince Consort Zenjiro also replies with a smile that he has learned it. He asks if today is over then. She says it is. He holds out his hand, she gives him hers, and they just stand there. Aura asks if something is wrong. He says that nothing is wrong, but he remembered something about how in the movies after the wedding they carry you to bed in their arms and he wanted that too. Aura says that she understands him. Then he can rely on her. She may have weakened a little lately, but with a little training she is sure that she can carry him to bed in her arms. He imagines her carrying him in her arms and explaining it to her. She wonders if it's really the other way around. It's embarrassing. They talk for a while and then fall asleep. The man introduces to Prince Francesco that these are their latest models using their latest buttons, and if he wishes, they can immediately make one in his size from this fabric. Prince Francesco thinks about these new 4-hole buttons, how intriguing. Although such clothes are part of the northern fashion, they are completely different from what they have in their kingdom, as he thought. This kingdom is very interesting. Prince Consort Zenjiro says during the conversation that he understands he is extremely pleased to hear that Prince Francesco has settled in well here. He says that everything is so. The climate and food here are not so different from his kingdom, but the local fashion and culture simply blew his mind. In order to keep the royal company, he needs someone of the same circle. However, at the moment in his country, they only have 2 adults of royal blood, who are of the same status as Prince Francesco. One of them is Aura, who is busier than all the others and cannot leave her duties as queen, which leaves them today with only one other solution, them as prince consort, to negotiate with Prince Francesco. Prince Consort Zenjiro says that he heard that he really liked the drink they provided during a celebration that evening. He asks how about this? If he would like a bottle as a gift. Prince Francesco happily asks if he is telling the truth. Prince Consort Zenjiro replies that of course it is. He asks Fabio to bring her here. Fabio bows and says that it will be done, then leaves. Prince Francesco says how wonderful this is. He thanks Prince Consort Zenjiro. He proudly says that he had never drunk anything like it before and he simply could not forget about it from the first sip he took then. He considers himself a good sommelier, but this drink was simply incomparable. Prince Consort Zenjiro thinks to himself that he really likes to talk. He says he's glad he liked it. Fabio comes and says he brought it. Prince Consort Zenjiro says it's a good job and opens the bag. He puts a bottle in front of him. Everyone looks on in shock. Prince Consort Zenjiro thinks to himself that this is good as long as everything goes according to their plan. They knew that although the people of the dual kingdoms showed great interest in the marbles, they were rather indifferent to the beads. So how would they react if they showed them a glass bottle? Depending on their reaction, they may get a hint today about the secret behind their interest in glass marbles. Prince Shansko stands up abruptly and shouts that this is amazing. He asks what in the world this bottle is made of. Prince Consort Zenjiro awkwardly remains silent and looks at him. Prince Francesco ponders. She is much more transparent than crystal. He has never seen anything of such perfect purity and elaborate form before, as he thought. This kingdom is very interesting. Prince Consort Zenjiro thinks that this is not good. His reaction is so innocent that he can't tell whether he is happy to see the craftsman's beautiful work or whether he is simply happy because he found something that could be excellent for making magic items. I mean, he's still going to part with a very valuable bottle, so he wants to get some kind of result. He knew he should have been here with Aura. Prince Francesco awkwardly asks if he is sure he can take the whole bottle. He won't ask for it back after they finish drinking it. Prince Consort Zenjiro replies that they won't ask, so he can take the drink and the bottle with him. He puts the bottle back in the pouch and ties it in a knot. Prince Consort Zenjiro asks him to be extremely careful with it. After all, this vessel is very fragile. A relatively light fall on a hard surface could potentially break it. Prince Francesco replies that he understands. Then he will look after it very well. He adds that it is, however, a bit problematic, meaning he would feel extremely bad if he accepted something so valuable without giving him anything in return. He remembers something and asks if he would like to personally make a magic item just for him. Prince Consort Zenjiro is surprised by this proposal. Based on what Aura heard during their visit, Prince Francesco and Princess Bona must each provide a magical item as compensation for their stay, as well as permission for their guards to remain armed inside the palace. Prince Consort Zenjiro says that it is a very tempting offer, but he heard that creating a magic item takes a huge amount of time, and besides, he already promised to create a magic item for them earlier. Francesco remembers and awkwardly says that he is right, and they too cannot stay here forever. He thinks. Then he mutters under his breath that although it wouldn't be such a problem if he had the transparent gemstone with him. Prince Consort Zenjiro looks at him in horror. He lets out a silent scream and jerks from his place. Prince Consort Zenjiro wonders if this prince has gone mad. Shouldn't this be a top secret? His heart is pounding wildly. The ability of the transparent gemstone to significantly reduce the time it took to make magic items was nothing more than a rumor, but the prince simply admitted it in broad daylight as if nothing had happened. He wonders if it is possible that this prince is really just an ordinary, thoughtless fool. Then the servant asks for forgiveness. Prince Consort Zenjiro puts on a calm face and asks what is going on. He is told that Princess Bona has arrived and is asking for an audience. He asks if he should let her inside. Prince Consort Zenjiro begins to wonder, since he mentioned it, why Princess Bona, who should be looking after the prince, is not with him now. Prince Consort Zenjiro asks Prince Francesco about this. He says that he felt very sorry for Bona, who always had to accompany him, so he came without telling her anything. But who would have thought that she herself would come for him? He begins to laugh heartily. Princess Bona is very sorry for such a sudden visit. Prince Consort Zenjiro says it's okay, she doesn't mind. Besides, he has no reason to send her away. Princess Bona says she's very grateful. Prince Francesco says he doesn't quite understand, but she's lucky. Prince Consort Zenjiro thinks to himself that he would like to dig deeper into his interest in glass. It seems it would be better to change the location to one where they can communicate more freely. Prince Consort Zenjiro says it is time for tea. He asks if they would mind if they continue their conversation in a more casual place, like their gazebo in the garden. They all sit down at the table in the garden. They say how clean and cool it is here. Prince Consort Zenjiro says that it is after all. It was built so that a cool breeze would blow from the fountains in the gazebo. Prince Consort Zenjiro says that, however, the noise of the water here is a bit of a problem as it makes it quite difficult for outsiders to hear their conversation. He asks Prince Francesco what he meant when he said that the long time it takes to make magical items will not be a problem as long as they have the transparent gem in their hands. Bona, in horror and shock, begins to cough. Consort Zenjiro doesn't particularly want to offend them by sticking his nose into something that isn't his business. He also can't afford to achieve too much due to his position. It's an act difficult, he'll just continue to ask them directly. Princess Bona asks the prince in horror if he really said that. Prince Francesco smiles and says that it looks like he let it slip. She screams that it's not funny. It's the biggest secret of their royal family. Prince Francesco says that it was a secret. So he asks Prince Consort Zenjiro to keep it just between them. Princess Bona screams in panic that it would do them good if Prince Consort Zenjiro kept this a secret. Let him think it was over as soon as he found out about it. Prince Consort Zenjiro smiles softly. Prince Consort Zenjiro thinks how young and naive this is. If his statement was nothing more than a bluff, then Princess Bona herself might have been the one to leak important information. The hero asks them to calm down. He knows it won't help much given his position. But Prince Francesco only muttered it quietly, so he doubts anyone else could hear it. So why don't they talk about something constructive instead? Princess Bona blushes, bows, and asks to forgive her for her rudeness. Prince Francesco thinks and says that since it has come to this, what is done can no longer be undone. He asks how about this? If they are given this stone, he is sure that they will be able to significantly reduce the time needed to make a magical item especially for him. Prince Consort Zenjiro understands, as he thought, that this prince is not just a naive fool. He says that he understands their situation. But why does it have to be that glass? That is, he means that precious stone. He says that besides, he heard that the Dual Kingdom has the most advanced jewelry polishing technique in the south, so wouldn't it be easier for them to create something similar? He fears that he is greatly overestimating the skills of their country's jewelry craftsmanship. Even with their country's polishing techniques, he doubts it will be possible to polish a transparent material into such a perfect ball shape. He turns to Bona and asks for some kind of confirmation of his words. She sighs sadly and nods. She says that it is true. To be precise, there is no one in the Dual Kingdom who is capable of such a feat. Princess Bona heard that in the past there were several master craftsmen who were skilled enough to create similar ball-shaped crystals. However, not only were their chances of success very low, it also took a huge amount of time to complete one, so they could only complete 3, maybe 4 in their entire lives. Francesco says with a smile and great joy that naturally the difference will be like heaven and earth. Like for example with that stone that Lady Isabella received earlier. He is sure that they could complete the basic enchantment of the 4 elemental magics within 1 day. Princess Bona looks at him in horror and fear. Francesco says that in the end, what matters most is the color and shape of the jewels. He asks Bona if that's true. She has already accepted his words and is just trying to gather her thoughts. Princess Bona replies that this is true. The more transparent the stone, the easier it will be for mana to pass through it during the enchantment process. In fact, this is the reason why gems are considered the best material for enchantment magic. As for the form, she begins to think hard, but it looks more like she is shutting herself up. And Prince Consort Zenjiro looks at her questioningly. Princess Bona sighs and says she's very sorry. It seems she got too carried away with the explanation. She remembers and asks if he is also interested in this whole process. Prince Consort Zenjiro thinks and understands. It is clear to him this is how he wants to get out of this. She wants to make him say that he is interested in all this. Prince Consort Zenjiro is almost certain that if he agrees to this, they will be able to twist the fact that Prince Francesco himself let it slip into something like he told the secret because Prince Consort Zenjiro showed an interest in it. Since he had noticed her intentions, he would rather back off now than get into trouble later. although he also shouldn't push them too hard and turn it into a diplomatic conflict. He puts his hands in front of him, making fists. He says with a smile that he can't say he's interested. Although it does seem like an interesting topic to talk about, he's a little embarrassed to admit it, but he's not very knowledgeable about magic. He was only able to awaken his monosense quite recently. He fears that if they continue this conversation, he will only make a fool of himself and disappoint the two of them, though it would be a completely different story if Queen Aura were here with them, as Prince Consort Zenjiro believes. In his head, he thinks to let them end this conversation for now, under the pretext that even if they share more information with him, with his position, he cannot guarantee them any rewards. So he asks them to discuss this further with Queen Aura. Princess Bana looks at him for a long time, understands that this is a failure, and briefly says that it is clear to her, then it is okay if they continue this conversation for the time when Her Majesty Aura is present. Prince Consort Zenjiro nods his head, that of course he will gladly convey it to her. Prince Francesco looks at Princess Bona, who breathes a sigh of relief. In any case, with this he was able to confirm that the glass ball is capable of reducing the time needed to make magical items. He believes that this information alone is worth more than one bottle of this drink. On the way, the disgruntled Princess Bona begs Prince Francesco to refrain from committing such acts. He apologizes and says that she seemed very busy lately, so he was very worried about her. In the future, he promises to be more careful. Princess Bona asks him again. He says that he means that it is not such a big deal, and his father and grandfather said that he can tell them about the secret of the kingdom if he can get his hands on this stone. He winks at her. Princess Bona covers his mouth with her hands and again asks him not to speak so carelessly and so loudly about something so important. He freezes in shock. Princess Bona says that was not what the Crown Prince and His Majesty said. It was an order to do whatever it took to get the stone. At worst, they would not blame them if their secret had to be revealed. They never said they could just go and throw their secrets around. He laughs and says that's why she's still a naive little girl. He tells her that she underestimates how well his father and grandfather understand him. They already took into account that he might let the cat out of the bag from the very moment they told him about it. Princess Bona looks at him questioningly and does not understand. Francesco proudly and smugly shouts that, after all, both his father and grandfather know perfectly well that he is not smart enough to remember all these small details. Princess Bona sighs wearily and tells Prince Francesco with regret that this is not something to be proud of. Then she notices something and looks at his hands. She asks what he is carrying so delicately in his hands all this time. Francesco opens it and says it's a gift from Prince Consort Zenjiro. He bets it'll definitely sweep her off her feet. At this time, Prince Consort Zenjiro is sitting at the table with Fabio standing next to him. Prince Consort Zenjiro sighs tiredly, and Fabio asks if he can take up some of his time. He looks up and asks if something is wrong. He replies that it is about what he did earlier. He says that when they moved to the gazebo in the middle of their negotiations, he believes it was to discuss a very delicate matter. Prince Consort Zenjiro replies that he is right. It was extremely secret information about the dual kingdom. To be honest, he himself could not have imagined that Prince Francesco could let slip such an important matter. He looks up and tells Fabio that this is definitely not something he can reveal to him. He promises that he will tell Aura later, so he asks Her Majesty herself if he really wants to know about it. Fabio looks around and briefly answers that it is clear to him. An awkward silence ensues. Prince Consort Zenjiro suspiciously asks him again what is wrong. Fabio turns to him and says that he fears that they may have been deceived. Prince Consort Zenjiro does not understand what this means and asks what he means. At this time, Prince Francesco and Princess Bona are sitting in another room. Prince Francesco shows a gift from Prince Consort Zenjiro, and she shouts about these precise and clear lines, what truly divine cutouts, talking about a bottle with a drink. Prince Francesco awkwardly asks her to try not to break it.